All right. You guys all ready?
Yeah.
All right, good. We're gonna go ahead and call this meeting to order at 6:34 p.m. We'll go ahead and start with the minutes. Anybody have any questions or comments for the minutes?
First sentence doesn't make any sense. It was called to order by Chairman Pro Tem Scott Schneider, Austin Lashley. That's a long name.
Yeah. Okay, I will delete the,
Just put a period and delete Austin there, leave him there on the bottom.
yeah.
And that's the only thing I found.
Funny because it's the first sentence. I didn't even catch that. There it is, right there. I don't think.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes August. Sorry, 2023 with one correction.
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, well, we're just on time for our first appointment here. Silverton Powerhouse, liquor license. If you want to come sit up here and hand out your, welcome to have a seat at the table. These are pretty.
They're so formal.
Right? There's some highs and some seconds and yeah.
And we're being recorded.
Yeah, we're being recorded.
Okay.
You might just say your name into the microphone for the public right now too.
I'm Hannah Green.
Thank you.
Raise my hand. They can't see that.
I didn't, well, I guess, so this is the public hearing, so, we should go ahead and open it up to the public unless you guys have any comments of the application to start with.
Yeah, just, just to state that it's a Colorado liquor retail license application, for the Silverton Powerhouse LLC at 8A Mears Avenue.
Okay.
Is this just for like functions,
Yeah,
different things? Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it makes sense for you guys rather than doing individual, event licensing to just have one.
Right, because that's an issue we've had because we're not a nonprofit, so
Yeah.
you find a nonprofit to do special events and. Yeah, and
Yeah.
Bruce really wants us to do it too,
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
you know.
Willie, you see any
No.
problems with the application or anything like that?
I said there were no problems and
Got the fingerprints.
got the fingerprints.
Yeah.
There we go.
Sorry about that.
No, I mean, we now all know now.
Oh, man, yeah, the fingerprinting thing was a mess after COVID for a while.
It was, and they set up, it used to be so simple. You go to the sheriff's office, they take your fingerprints and they send them on to CBI.
Yeah.
Well, now you have to set up, the individual has to set up an appointment with, there's two agencies in the state, private businesses throughout the state. You have to set up an appointment, go get their fingerprints. Then they send that to the state and then the state sends the information back to us. Well, the problem is one of the problems is we had to set up a separate account for marijuana licensing, so I set that up. LaDonna had to set up one for elections for the sheriff. They needed to be fingerprinted before they could run for sheriff. And then she set up one for liquor licensing, that has to do with liquor license. Well, apparently, and I didn't realize this, it all ended up under me as the administrator to the CBI website or CBI site. And because I am I mean, the last time I did this was 2 years ago, or whenever the guys out here at the, across from the combine did the, marijuana license. I, had no clue. Well, when I set it up, it was under my old email address.
Oh.
At front, or
Frontier.
at frontier.net. So when she got her fingerprint, they sent it to San at frontier.net, which.
Oh,
Doesn't exist anymore.
yeah,
And that was one, I'm sure, of many that I
yeah,
didn't get as I tried to go through, try to remember all the ones I needed to get changed. And so anyway, we
Figured it out, though.
we did get it figured out, but it was, it was driving you nuts.
I was like, where are they?
How many times do I have to get my fingerprint? So anyway, they did come back, and he wasn't a wanted felon or anything, so
yeah.
he's good.
I mean, everything I'm here looking at, just one note on here, knowing our sheriff and the legalities of things is if you're gonna have people who are gonna be outside, then he really, really likes to see a fenced in controlled area.
Yeah, we talked about that. And I think for now it'll be inside, but
Yeah.
if we do anything outside or.
Yeah, I mean, it can be as little as caution tape,
Okay,
thing,
that's good to know.
just to make sure that people are,
Have a boundary.
yeah, people have a boundary, then they can stay inside.
Okay,
That way, because otherwise it can be considered, public
right.
usage and whatnot, so, yeah. Yeah, I think other than that, everything looked good to me. Do you guys have any other comments before we open it up to the,
I don't have anything. It looks fine to me.
I don't either.
we'll go ahead and open this up to the public, and if anyone in the public has any comments about this retail liquor license application, speak now or forever hold your peace. Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Yeah, do you guys have any other comments, or I would entertain a motion to?
I make a motion, we approve the Colorado liquor retail license application for the Silverton Powerhouse LLC.
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
All right,
Aye.
Aye. All
that
right.
was easy.
There you go. Go forth.
Thank you.
That was the easy part.
Yeah.
You don't want to forget it later?
Yeah. Not that I would ever do that.
Just right here, right?
Yeah.
The title is commissioner or?
Sure.
Chair. Okay.
Right. Thank you.
We can. We can move on to our next appointment here for Paul Wright. Okay, all right, yeah, go ahead and have a seat up here. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So I'm Paul Reich. I work at Access Health System, which is a community health center. We're headquartered in Durango, and we're really just looking for a letter of support from each of our counties that we serve, because we have purchased, if you're familiar with Durango, the south end of town, the old Mercury Payment Building. So our plan is to integrate bring our 3 clinical sites and our 1 corporate site into 1 facility, which we think will dramatically change, the patient experience. I mean, it's a beautiful building. I don't know if you've been in there recently. It's just an absolutely stunning building. And so, serving community members who are underserved, I think it's a game changer. And I think it will also, we're going to expand our dental services. I think we're adding 5 or 6 dental suites. We're working at a partnership with Pueblo Community College to be able to do a learning lab on the 2nd floor so that students who are there can actually come out and do clinical rotations and do practice labs. I mean, it should be a pretty neat partnership. just trying to find people in the healthcare sphere right now, whether it's, CNAs or behavioral health therapists or anything. It's just about 20% of the workforce in healthcare has left healthcare over the last 3 years. So what we're looking for is letter of support to support it as a one of the economic contributing project in the enterprise zone, which will allow individuals to make tax favored donations to it. Our plan is to, between grants and is to raise about $7 million to offset the cost of the building and the renovations that we have to do. So would ask for your support in a letter, which we had given you a kind of a draft, free to edit it however you want to put it in your own words, but really just looking for some support so that we can move forward with that. And I'm happy to answer any questions. And
Just which Mercury building, the one down?
the big shiny one by the river. So it's just
Yeah,
south of the mall,
Yep.
down by the movie theater. Yeah, and this is something that the board has been looking at for probably the last 5 to 7 years, and starting to put some dollars aside to be able to do that. Primarily, again, because we're spread out, and we know that if you're a patient who's coming in to get your teeth cleaned, like I just went to my dentist and they asked me they took my blood pressure and they asked me how my mental attitude was.
Oh.
Now, if I had had high blood pressure, like they might have referred me to my doc, but I would have had to then make a trip there. So we know that if we can get everybody in one place and offer their primary care, their dental and behavioral health,
Sure.
you have a much better chance of keeping that patient in the system, as opposed to, you walk out of your doctor's office and they tell you to go see a behavioral health person. You're like, yeah, okay, I'm gone. Maybe not.
Yeah.
So I think I really do think down in, especially in the Durango area, and, we served last fiscal year when we run from June to June, and we served just over 500 residents of San Juan County, and split between primary care, dental, and behavioral health. So, people do make that trip over those passes. I was saying to your administrator that most of the time when I come here, it's after the Iron Horse race, and I'm dying. So I came over from Uray tonight, and I had a great time. I was able to walk around town without gasping for air. So, but people make that trip down there regularly, whether they're going down for groceries or what have you. So, we appreciate any support you can give us in terms of that letter.
Sure.
I don't have a problem with that.
No.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
We've heard about you guys and you're doing a lot. I was just interested, did the cats kind of help you with this? Did they donate part of the building or
No,
cats? No.
no, but it's still, I think it worked out to be cheaper than trying to build today.
Oh, yeah.
From scratch. I mean, given
Yeah.
cost of construction.
Yeah.
And I toured the building, and it was as though, it's kind of like creepy, right? Because all the workstations were set up,
Yeah,
all the chairs were set. It was like they had just packed up and walked out the door.
Yeah.
And they made some money on it. I think in the end,
Well, they made lots of money.
they made lots of money, but we felt like, I think our board felt like it was the right time to make that move, because right now we're split among 3 clinical sites, and that's clunky.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so our plan is to hopefully by, they say early 2024, I'm guessing it'll be closer to, maybe a year from now, maybe a little less, to open it. And we'll obviously extend invitations for you all to come down, and anytime you want to see it, tour it. If you want to see it before that, our project manager says don't, but we always say come down, put a hard hat on, and we'll walk you around it. So happy to do that.
A lot of construction needed.
I'm sorry?
A lot of, when you say hard hat, a lot of construction necessary.
Yeah, mostly just interior, a lot of interior, demo, putting up new walls, creating the dental suites.
Okay.
Outfitting it for primary care.
Right.
It's
Special electrical and everything else.
yeah, the electrical,
Yeah.
the water that you need for those dental suites. So,
Yeah.
so that's the nature of the work. Nothing like no large, changes to the building itself. We're still working out if we can get funding to put an X-ray in there. To again augment that and be able to add more services. So our hope is to expand the draw in terms of the community and be able to bring more patients in.
That's great.
That's our hope. Fingers crossed. If we can find the staff, that's always the challenge.
Yeah, absolutely.
In today's times, so
Yeah.
difficult. You just need consensus to send this.
I think probably a motion would be good, just
Okay.
to be formal.
I want to make a motion, Scott, or you want
Go
to?
ahead, Pete.
I'll make a motion to. For access request for letter of supports to, that we give our support on that.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time tonight.
Thanks for coming all the way up.
Yeah, well, and I was saying to Hannah, my house, I live outside of Ophir, so my house, by the crow flies, I'm pretty close to home, but.
Oh, you live in Ophir?
I live just outside Ophir, yeah, we've
Nice.
been there about 20 some years, and, but I'm not sure I'm gonna go back over the pass tonight, I think I'm gonna take the long way around, let's see, I've got my little RAV4.
Oh.
I'm not sure I trust it,
though.
yeah, I've done it, but
Yeah.
I might take the leisure.
Depends on whether that rainstorm hits right now or not.
Yeah, I could be up there in the middle of the rainstorm, thank you very much.
Yeah.
You must have known my buddy, Kevin Galen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, that community's changed.
I'm sure it has.
It's kind of grown up.
Good and bad.
Well, thank you. I'll let you get on with your business at hand.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Yeah, nice to see all of you.
All right, so I have a couple minutes where we can kind of go through some of our correspondence, maybe the EPA correspondence at least.
Sure. Yeah, a couple of other things. I'll bring up as well. In a few minutes here. Yeah, in your packet was, the Beaver Peak, mining district update.
You have it, I don't have it.
I don't have it either.
Did it not go? Did it not?
I don't have it.
Well,
I at least had it in the digital packet. But honestly, I'm
sorry.
have a different one, I think.
Did you send it in a digital
Pretty
packet?
crossed out too in the.
We could look it up or,
You know,
okay,
I'm
Got it.
sorry, I thought I copied it, I must have.
It's pretty far towards the back. And
Yeah, you
just
can-
past the San Miguel stuff.
Yeah, the time ago was the last thing I had in my packet.
I've got what it would look like.
Okay.
copy it.
Copy here. Forget, sorry about
Okay,
that.
that's all right. Earlier than that, we could talk about the San Miguel stuff. Do you guys have that in your packets?
Yep.
The Tri-State stuff, you mean?
Interesting.
Yeah.
So they're talking about doing the same thing that they did, as they did on the other one.
That's, if you remember at the last meeting, I told you that this is what they were planning on doing, but I thought for informational purposes, we get you the plan and the map, so that. You knew what they were doing, and one of the things we requested from them was their project manager. On-site project manager, so if there's any emergencies or something that Jim Donovan would be able to have a contact person, and also told him, as far as road closures, traffic safety, to keep in touch with Louis and Bruce.
Well,
So
they have like a,
Are they, because they might shut down over?
they're not planning on shutting it down, but they're planning on primarily flying out everything, but if the helicopter is going across the road, they'll
Then they
need
close it.
short-term closure.
Short-term close it, yeah.
they're gonna fly out all the stuff they're cutting down, is that what they're proposing?
Yeah. As opposed to carving in roads.
Why don't they just roll them down the hillside, and we can use them for fire?
Well, I don't think you wanna go down that hillside.
Oh, well, yeah, I was talking to the uphill side.
Yeah, oh, yeah, there you go.
They're actually,
Put them on the road.
No, it's fine. I
Nice.
had it in my paper.
they're actually gonna store it next to the substation, or just as you go down the Oprah Road, they have a piece of property there. And sounds like they're trucking it out, so they must have a contract for somebody to haul it out, because that was gonna be my suggestion,
On
was
the other side, yeah.
we notify the public and let them take care of it for them, but
They're gonna sell it instead.
And we did, on a lot of these projects, we did talk to EPA today in our meeting with, EPA. You can see that first picture, that was, the old convention mill site. They just put a bunch of debris there, so people won't camp there because they found some, high lead levels. There, that was campground, what was it, 4 or whatever it was, I can't remember the name. And then they did a little thing just as you start up the Lackawanna Road from the Rashford Gulch side. This seemed ridiculous, but they found some high lead levels at a campsite. It's rocks that dropped out of the tram buckets and stuff. They decided to cover it all up with dirt and make it uncampable. Even though the lead tied up in those rocks is going to be tied up in the rocks, it's not like it's going to be, I don't know, it's just I'll just.
We know about the obsession flood.
No, yeah, but
They did do, of course, they're drilling up at Lake Emma. They hit their first target, but it sounds like they missed their second target on G level. They hit the mine pool, but they still missed the target they were shooting for. Then they did cleanup work at the Mammoth. Just those settling ponds were pretty full, and so they're working on that. I have a feeling that BLM, there's a settling pond on BLM land that was put there legally, if I remember. And BLM would like to have it removed and put uphill. I think they'd be better off just leaving it, but they want stuff off their property, so they're willing to put it on somebody else's. So Red and Bonita, they've diverted some of the water away from that fen, if I understood that. This work at the Joe and John, was this the road that was put up to the upper Joe and John, and they put in this rock and timber? She didn't really reiterate what that was. Then at the Monona, they took out that big concrete box that should have never been put there in the first place, but now they put in kind of an iron terrace, to let the iron precipitate out there. They put in this big concrete box to test the possibility of it was just another way to see if they could take metals out of the water and stuff, and the iron just clogged up all the pipes, so it didn't work. And they put in the road was in perfectly good shape. Nature had reclaimed it, and they put a whole new road, or not a new road, but just tore all that up to put in their concrete box. The problem with all that too, I think they did more damage environmentally than they were trying to take care of environmentally. So, and then I guess talk about tailings pond in our commissioner reports.
Yeah.
Okay.
We might be a little late on that.
Okay.
Hopefully not.
Okay. Anything else, Willie, or?
The other thing I put in, one of the other things I put in front of you tonight, was this, state senator Jeff Bridges is doing a tour of Southwest Colorado and to talk about housing, and he's scheduled for 9:30 on September 1st at the town hall. You may remember last year there was some state legislation proposed that basically the state was going to tell Townsend County how to do their zoning, and I mean, they really wanted to get involved so that they could develop affordable housing, but it really was like a one size fits all. It doesn't. And fortunately CCI and CML were able to get that killed. But so I think part of the reason he's going around is to get input from local communities as to what's needed. But so if anybody's available in town, I think I'll be there for sure. But just to talk about housing needs and concerns.
Okay.
The best way to help us is to, programs and money, not regulations, and
Right.
telling us how we need to zone our communities. That's just my.
money's better than overreach.
Yeah.
My editorial comment.
think I'll be able to probably make it to that too, hopefully. So,
Okay.
Yeah, I think, research, anything else for correspondence?
One other quick thing,
All
which I think is good news, is, I've been talking with, Stephanie Weber of the San Juan Mountains Association. And she's been talking to San Juan Forest Service. And we were having discussions about needing to meet them, and they've been having discussions about how they need to meet us, and so she's trying to coordinate a meeting between two of us. It's looking like it's probably gonna be the second meeting in October, but when everybody will be available, but we haven't said anything confirmed, but we are headed in the right direction on this one.
So Stephanie's the San Juan Mountain Association, not the Forest Service.
San Juan Mountains Association is coordinating the meeting.
I got,
But
okay,
it's,
all right.
it's a Forest Service that work.
Okay,
That,
it's just,
yeah, no, San Juan Mountain Association works real closely with the Forest Service. And they work with us and, so.
They're the voluntary,
Yeah.
Yeah.
was this work based on your request, or did they?
Actually, Stephanie called me and said, asked if we would be interested in getting together to meet with the Forest Service to talk about Ice Lake and just kind of get an
Yeah,
update on,
absolutely.
and so that they could give us an update because they have volunteers up there and they, I think this year they're counting an average of 130 people a day hiking up to Ice Lake, which is higher than it was last year.
No, it's not 130, it's maybe more than that. It was like, wasn't it like 500 or 600 people a day during COVID or something like that?
Yeah, I don't do it.
Phenomenal on
It was pretty high, I don't know.
I think in the peak days, it was
On
that,
peak days, yeah.
but like the average of the season, that would make.
Yeah, I think weekends, it was up 500-600, but
that might be ballpark. I did hear of one of the people that's hiking that trail on behalf of the Forest Service. Just in her hike, 130 people and 80 dogs.
Yeah.
So tons of dogs.
so anyway, she asked if we'd be interested in meeting to talk about that, and I said, well, we had just been talking about making contact with the Forest Service because we just don't even know who's down there anymore. And she said, well, she would make contact with them and arrange a meeting. And I gave her our meeting dates. I also said if for whatever reason, if those meeting dates don't work, find a date that works for them and we'll figure out. But it's something that we felt pretty strongly about meeting them, putting names and faces together and actually having names. And I do have names, Nick Glidden is the Columbine District Ranger, and Charlie Morgan is, and that's Charlie Morgan is a female, is the recreation lead. And they would both, at a minimum, it would be those two.
It's strange they haven't reached out to us, and he's probably been there for several months.
I think since early spring or March anyway.
All right, that's it.
So, and it, it's one of these things where, March and, we need to get together and all of a sudden.
Summer hits and
Summer's gone.
we're busy and we're
Yeah,
busy.
so,
at least get them for the winter, huh?
totally.
If they're having that many dogs on the trail, I think that there may be some justification for not having dogs on the trail. They're far and away the biggest waste source from the trail.
Yeah.
Everybody takes bags up of dog poop and then just leaves it on the side of the trail.
Yeah, I was
I agree with you.
amazed at that.
Last time I was up there, was on that like Father's Day weekend, and we just went over from the Clear Lake side. And our daughter wasn't really excited on going too much further that day, but we sat there and had a nice time, and we watched the whole herd of elk kind of go up underneath the granite face across the creek from there too, which is really cool, but elk and dogs are not a good mixture. So there might be some room to talk on that kind of thing. And that might be a good way to reduce the numbers going up to Ice Lake. If we ask them to put dogs on that trail.
Yeah, you can do
reduce the
that.
impact.
Good point.
The Animas Mountain Trail, down in Durango,
Yeah.
that first quarter mile is covered in dog crap.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nasty.
Yeah. Yeah, just food for thought, but yeah, I
Yep.
think we can.
No, we should definitely bring that up and, ask them about the E. coli studies that they had done.
Sure.
Doesn't, it seems like MSI or somebody said that it wasn't as bad as people thought it might be, but I don't know if that's a fact or not, just something that came on.
Yeah, we,
Talk to them about the Brooklands, there's all kinds of subjects to,
He did,
Touch on
the represent, what was that guy's name? That was sitting by me.
Yeah, I can.
He was like their mine line reclamation representative and because they're not allowed to negotiate with these smaller contractors, wasn't that what it was? They're not doing anything this summer. There's something happening where you had small contractors that were given preference, whether it was women or veterans or something that owned these companies, and somehow they're not allowed to negotiate with them.
Apparently, nobody really knows, or he didn't really know what it was, but the guess was that there's a lawsuit somewhere that is causing them to freeze any of these contracts.
until that's straightened out.
Yeah, so there's nothing happening this year.
Yeah.
But they did, they do preference for women-owned businesses, minority-owned and veteran. And so somebody that was involved in this, it allows them to do a shorter bid process and more room for negotiation. So somebody is trying to throw a monkey wrench in that.
And wasn't the plan was it to take out the settling ponds that were there?
Yeah.
Which doesn't make any sense because they're now wetlands, they're big ponds with all kinds of stuff growing around them, strawberries and raspberries and all kinds of good stuff, and they're gonna take them out, even though. I don't understand that logic either, but that was the project that was supposed to happen this summer.
all right, are we ready to move on for our next appointment here?
Okay,
So our next appointment is Mr. Colby Barrett. Yeah, come out and sit up here for sketch plan of Bonanza Boy LLC plan unit development.
Okay, give a quick introduction. Okay, this is the Bonanza Boy LLC sketch plan. Mr. Kobe Bear, representing Bonanza Boy LLC, has submitted a sketch plan application for a planned unit development, also known as a PUD, for the purpose of developing the Silver Cloud Lodge and other improvements. The project is located on County Road 15, which is also known as Forest Service Road 821, near Mill Creek in the Chattanooga area off of Highway 550. Mr. Barrett owns approximately 256 acres in the Chattanooga area, and the property is all located within the Mountain Zoning District. And some of that property is located within the scenic view corridor as well, but not 1,500 feet off the center line of 550 is the view corridor. A planned unit development is a project improvement or development which is pre-planned in its entirety, with variations permitted from regulations in the context of the acceptance of the overall plan in its entirety on merits which outweigh the variation from regulations. As a planned unit development, the application follows procedures and the applicable requirements of Chapter 7 of the subdivision regulations, which means that, essentially what that means is when you're approving a PUD like a subdivision, you're setting up all the guidelines and the rules of where things can be built, where they can't be built, what can be built, how they can be built, those type of things. And it may take 20 years to develop it out or longer, but as long as they're staying within those guidelines, then they can continue to do that, as opposed to an improvement permit, which, you take each individual improvement and have an improvement permit, and you're reviewing just that particular improvement. This way, you're looking at the big picture of everything that's going in and how they support or the increased amount of traffic the whole project is gonna create, or, you know, various things, so. That's why they're doing it as a plan view and development, which is really the only practical way to do this project. The other thing I want to mention is, and I'm doing this for the applicant as well as the warden. I did it for the applicant at the planning commission meeting as well. Is just to note that the zoning and land regulations, section 0-109, vested property rights state approval of a zoning or rezoning application of permitted use or an improvement permit will not establish a vested property right unless and until final approval thereof has been granted by the Board of County Commissioners or by a designated official allowed to grant such permit under the terms of this code, or if applicable, final plat or approval by the Board of County Commissioners under the subdivision zoning or other regulations of the county. Meaning, again, that he has no vested rights in that property. If you approve his sketch plan and then deny preliminary, he can't come back and state that, well, I spent, you know, $1 million cleaning up my site based on your initial approval, because he has no guarantee of approval until the actual final approval. The proposed Silver Cloud Lodge will be located on the Shelbyville Lode, mining survey 18168. The lodge will consist of approximately 400 square foot of an approximately 400 square foot timber frame structure designed similar to the historic structures that were previously located on the site. The Silver Crown mine will be reopened and incorporated into the lodge. A garage and employee housing would be located on the Bonanza Boy mine mineral survey 15677. The property is adjacent to the mining mountain peak plain owned by Margaret Stern, also known as the Artist Cabin. Additional improvements would include a hydro generation, primitive dispersed campsites, interpretive signage, establishing rock and ice climbing routes, via ferrata trails and trails, along with habitat enhancement, the mill creek, wetland creation, and reforestation efforts. The lodge and other improvements will be off-grid and powered by solar, micro, hydro, biomass, and backup generator. Heating will use the same technologies along with the heat pump and wood stove. Domestic water for the lodge will come from the mine adit, which flows at a rate of about 30 gallons per minute. The water will need minimum treatment. A septic system will be on site, installed on site to treat wastewater. For the employee housing, water will come from a well or spring on site. A septic system will be installed on site to treat the wastewater. Internet will be provided by Starlink. Satellite phone, Garmin inReach, inReach, and CB radios will be available for emergency communications for both sites. Solid waste will be stored in bear resistant facilities and then transferred to the transfer station from both sites. The applicant will be required to create an account with the town of Silverton utility billing system for refuse. Propane will be used for cooking as well as for backup heating. The tank at the lodge will be buried. The tank at the garage will be above ground, but screened. Avalanche safety is a primary concern for any development in this area. Protection of the guests, employees, general public, and emergency responders are critical. While the structures can be engineered and constructed to withstand the impact of an avalanche, and diversions can be constructed to minimize the impact, there is still a risk of accessing the site and leaving the site, along with the issues of Highway 550 may create, such as road closures. Land use permit, if you remember, was permitted to allow for the mining remediation of the Shelbyville Lode at the previous commissioner's meeting. It appears that the applicant has provided a well thought out project and provided significant technical expertise. The project's location has spectacular scenic and recreational value, and it is also almost entirely in an avalanche hazard area. Region 5 Transportation Director Julie Constant has raised some of CDOT's concerns and the impacts it may have on their ability to do avalanche mitigation. And I put that email in front of you tonight. I meant to include it in the packet, and I missed it with apparently with the.
It's in my PowerPoint too, so it's
Okay. The adjacent landowners have been notified by, via mail. The planning commission reviewed the PUD sketch plan at their regular meeting of August 15th and voted unanimously to recommend approval with the conditions as recommended by the staff. The county commissioners may recommend approval with conditions or denial of the sketch plan. If the commissioners do choose to recommend approval, I would suggest that they do so with the 8 conditions of approval listed by staff in your report. And just in general, you know, at sketch plan level, you're kind of looking at big picture, conceptual, and I mean there are a lot of details there, which are critical. But when you come to preliminary, I mean, you really are getting into nuts and bolts and details and laying out everything. You know, essentially at preliminary, it's everything is there. The only thing that's missing is, you know, crossing a few T's and dotting a few I's before final. So, you know, sketch plan you can look at with a little larger brush, but by the time we get to preliminary, you know, everything's got to be, if you choose to approve it, sketch plan or preliminary, it has to be a lot more specific.
Willie, for tonight, we don't have a scheduled public hearing for this, correct?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I should have stated that. Interestingly enough, for PUD or subdivision, the public hearing is actually at the preliminary plan level at planning commission. There is no requirement for a public hearing at sketch plan or at the commissioner's level. You know, at the sketch plan at commissioner's
There
level.
is no, there it says there is no requirement, but we could still do it.
You could still do it. I think
The public has a right to know what's going on. I don't think they have a clue this is that.
yeah. I mean, I think you do it at the preliminary plan level.
Okay,
I mean, that would be my recommendation is that we do it at the planning commission, but then we also do it at the county commissioners.
I'm not sure that I think we, you know, if members are here from the public, I think it's okay, probably hear their concerns now, but that was something that was brought up at the planning commission level too, is that we really want to make sure that that the public has an adequate opportunity to comment on a project of this scale, for sure. So, yeah.
Yeah, and this is a big project, and you know, so any input from anybody, I think, is valid.
Sure. Yeah, but I think we should wait on that, and we should hear from Mr. Barrett.
Great. Well, I did kind of an outline on this project at the last meeting, right? So I was I'm not gonna rehash that. You guys have the binders and stuff. I was gonna go through updates since our last meeting, and then really kind of delve into the avalanche stuff, because I think that's probably one of the biggest pieces that's kind of come up. And Dan Roan and those folks are on as well. They're our avalanche consultants, so if anything comes up that's really technical, they're available as well. All right, so just 2 updates. Coordination with other state and federal agencies. On September 7th, I'll be meeting with San Juan National Forest to discuss all the road issues for FSR 821. So that's avalanche safety, winter gating, road maintenance, minor rotary alignment up near the lodge. Those kind of things. We've already gotten approval from them to do the mine cleanup. So that's already approved by them, but they want to go out and visit the site to talk about those items. So we'll be sitting down with them on the 7th on that. CDPHE let us know today that the VCUP approval should come by Friday, August 25th. So and then we obviously won't start in a VCUP until we send that to you all. So
could I interrupt for a second? This is Dennis Galbraith. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if it's appropriate to gloss over what was presented the last time, because that was not part of this actual process. That was part of the cleanup process and being able to go forward. I don't know how the commissioners feel about that, but I would like a clean record on this application, and it seems to me that we at least need a summary of the project, even if it was talked about at the last meeting.
That sounds good, Dennis.
Great. If that's a preference, I can skip, I've got the old one here, so I can just skip to
Sure.
that.
Yeah.
I'm glad I left those slides in.
Yeah.
So so I'll just go through here. I'll gloss over just the VCAP stuff because we've already talked about that and go more into the PUD piece. So just orientation, this is the Mill Creek or Colomine Lake Valley around Chattanooga Curve. So the vision for this is really to create a small, unique, energy independent backcountry lodge that allows a very limited number of guests to safely explore the San Juan Mountains in a variety of ways. We want to build in a way that improves the local environment, honors and rebuilds the history of the valley, and brings pride to the local community. Phase 1 was the VCUP that's approved and hopefully be starting this summer. Phase 2 would be the lodge construction, which I'll go into in detail. And then phase 3 would be the employee housing and garage construction near the artist cabin. And then phase 4 is kind of the recreational improvements and Mill Creek habitat enhancement. So there's some improvement of Mill Creek, adding sinuosity and pools and other habitat to hopefully be able to reintroduce native cutthroat trout if possible. We're going to look at building a via ferrata in the Mill Creek Gorge. That would all be guided. Some bolted climbing routes, both rock and ice, depending on location there. Some trail networks in there, and then dispersed primitive campsites. This is the view looking up the valley there. That's Forest Service Road 821 that you see there, and the waste rock pile is where the lodge would go. Some more views of what that looks like. And so this is not taken from 550, but kind of up on the almost like Chattanooga South ski runs, or not ski runs, but places where people are backcountry skiing. And you can see here that really nice gorge there, waterfalls, and then the waste rock pile. The lodge would be here on the right-hand side as you're looking at it, and right with this dark area is where the collapsed attic is. So most of the infrastructure here will be to the right. That's kind of nice because as you're looking at it from 550, this tree bank here on the road up obscures a good portion of the lodge. So the vision on this lodge is really to kind of rebuild what was there. This photo was taken, we think, around 1912. We got that from the Historic Society. We sat down with a couple folks with the historic group there to see what were the building materials they were using, what was some of the information about that. And so that's similar to what we're going to try to recreate there. This is all kind of still at kind of the sketch plan phase, but what we did, the architects that I'm working with, first recreated what was there based on that photo. And of course, it's going to be a little bit, they're working off one photo. We can only find one of that whole infrastructure, but they placed that into the topo that's there. This has all been gone for, 80 or 100 years. And then came up with a new vision that would not be a perfect replica, but really honor the structures that were there, a lot of the roof lines and dormers and concept around multiple structures and those kind of things. So the bottom piece is really what the lodge complex would look like. You'd have here a single story common dining area, and then we've got rooms here in the upper two-story area. This small building would be like a wood-fired sauna, and then this is the added entrance. The far right is probably the biggest deviation from what was there. That's a passive solar greenhouse, pretty small, but it's going to be tucked into the trees, so it won't be visible really from most angles. So that's obviously not recreating what was there, but helps us in terms of independence and being able to grow herbs for the kitchen and that kind of stuff. So
Well, your architect that, if he has dormers on the backside, they're gonna be a nightmare as far as ice.
yeah,
And the little house on the right is gonna dump all the snow right next to there, so you don't want a roof line pointing right
Yeah.
into the, just.
no, we'll look at that. There's some of these things like, we discussed a little bit actually at the planning commission meeting was, these are, I can't get my pointer to work, but on the 1-story structure, those are solar panels. Now, they're not the blue or black ones that you would typically see. I have a picture in here of, we have one that are used in Europe for historic buildings. So it's like a rusty metal look with a matte finish. But there's some, some stuff that we need to work out there in terms of snow sliding off of those and whether we have a snow safety catchment there, which is good for safety, bad for keeping the panels clean. So there's some of those details we're not at that stage yet, but those are some of the discussions that we're working on. But the intent here is really to, as close as practical, recreate what is there. And one more point is, this was tar paper with batten construction. We're not going to do that. But we can use native stone, rusty metal, rough sawn lumber to get really close. So that it looks like it fits in that context. Oh, I'm glad this was up there. So that's what those roofs look like. These are used on historic structures in throughout Europe, and it's kind of a rusty metal look. You can tell it's not exactly rusty metal, but from a little ways away, it kind of blends in. And it's also a matte finish, not high gloss. But this was the discussion a little bit that we got into in the planning commission is like, okay, we got these safety bars here. That's great, but are you gonna then shade your solar panels? So how do you clean those? So there's a few things we don't have totally worked out, but that's the level of detail we're starting to get towards. The underground concepts, I've put this in the package. Really the overall concept is to go in through the old mine, follow its tunnel for a distance. It's actually something like 3,200 feet is what the old records are showing. We're not going to go that far in, but really be able to expand portions of it once we get into good stable rock to build the infrastructure we need for water storage, mechanical, these kind of things. And then as well as some of the guest rooms would come out and exit on that cliff in the canyon. So the reason I call these preliminary is I don't know what exact angle that tunnel went on. I don't know what other kind of workings are in there. I have a pretty good guess, but I'm not ready to present like full plans there. So this is still at the conceptual phase.
Must stop. Have
Yeah.
you ever been in this mine? Scott? Have you been in this mine?
That one had too much water. I've been in the one above it.
Okay.
And
Is
the one-
there
and the one
is there
that-
steel sets or anything in this?
Uh,
A little before steel sets, right?
I guess, we couldn't get in.
You know this?
All the mines I've been in every one in this valley that you can get into.
Right.
None had steel sets, none had bolting, most have track, at least the longer ones. Not that.
No roof bolting, huh?
No, but it's really, I mean, it's good rock, but they're small. These ones were all kept pretty
Okay.
small. I would imagine this one's, I'd be surprised if it's more than 7 feet wide.
Did you get in the one with the mud up over your knees?
Yep.
Been in that one. And when we came out, our packs were floating away because there'd been a huge downpour and the
Yeah,
packs we put in the stream, but were floating down the stream.
there's one in the gorge.
Yeah,
And that, I was up to here in mud, and that one, it was pretty creepy.
that's pretty
Yeah.
interesting location.
Yeah.
I thought the reason I went in there is I thought that it might connect with this one.
Hmm.
And so I was like, oh, here's a way to get
Doesn't
in,
go
'cause
very
this
far.
one's, yeah, it's pretty small. But the silver cloud up above is really nice. There's very little water. It's,
Got that steel gate on it. I think.
Yeah.
It doesn't still have that on
yeah, we're part owners of that one. We own like 12%.
Hmm.
But I made contact with the Gillilands own that. And he actually, as a kid, went into this mine. And I was like, what's it look like? He's like, I don't know. I went in, it was dark. But yeah, he sent me keys, so I went up and checked that out. So, and I also ran through this whole project with him as well, just to get any feedback. So this concept's been done in Europe. This is the Sala silver mine in Sweden. And you can see this isn't exactly what we're going to do, but that concept of being able to put some pretty interesting infrastructure directly in the mine itself, and that concept's not really been done in North America. Some more pictures from Sala. So this would be, some of the things we'd be looking at doing here. I mentioned the waterfall view rooms. So these are nice because I think there's a pretty diminishing number of people that want to sleep straight up in a mine, but having a window and those kind of things is a little bit better. And so the majority of our rooms would be on this waterfall view cliff, and so we can get to that from the mine itself. There's a view of some of the rock. I've rappelled off this, and we've done some geotech on looking at the joint sets and those kind of things. The big thing to take away here is these rooms won't be seen from 550, from 821, from the Columbine Lake Trail. They're pretty much getting there in that gorge.
How much trip do you have to drive to get from there to there?
180 feet, I think.
Oh, so
It's a real amount, but it's not going to be ridiculous. So this is kind of this is super bad concept sketch here, but the waterfall view rooms will come out on the cliff, have a steel deck that we can winch up during winter. Other times we're expecting any kind of avalanche in the area, and then that would fold out when that's being used. This concept, not with an old mine, but with this kind of glass concept, has been done in Boulder, Utah. So we've actually went and visited this, and I went out and blasted with the guy that built this structure for a week to kind of learn how he did it. Our rock here is different, but some of the concepts can be brought there. So, and one thing to note here is for rock safety, you want to recess that glass portion in, and so that also helps with aesthetics. It's not glass just right there on the front.
Are you gonna keep the debris out of the creek from the blast?
There will be some that goes in the creek from the blast, the last one.
Okay.
Yeah. But we'll be using the slusher and mucking from the inside, so it would just be the last one. My guess, to keep that minimized, well, for two reasons: to keep that amount minimized, and also to really have a clean exit, we'll probably do a 4-foot shot or less on the last one, and they'll be able to know where the last one where they're getting to by drilling pilot holes. So when we've done this in the Entrada, on the entrances, they're 4-foot shots. It's because if you really try to do an 8 or 6, it screws up the outside too much. But it'd be impossible to get no rock in there. So
how would they exit that if there was a problem?
yeah, so this is also going to be the start of the Via Ferrata up there. So we will have ladderway or staircase to get to the top, and from that area you could walk out to the road pretty easy on a flat trail. That was a big thing for us, the emergency egress. So one of the things that we're also going to have here, it's hard to see, but that's emergency egress as well. So we didn't want to have some concept where if the portal had an issue, that there wasn't multiple ways to exit.
There has to be.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that lower one, the lower exit would be somewhere in here. So they'd be kind of exiting out close to the creek. The upper one, they'd be able to come out either through the tunnel they came in on, or through staircase or ladder, kind of emergency fire escape that way. Another structure that's gonna be built here would be the hydro generation house. This is down in the creek bed, underneath a little bit of island of pine trees there. This will again be blasted into the hillside, essentially just a bunker. There's two reasons for that. One is, it's, makes it not visible at all. And then secondly, this is, in a run out zone for this slide path here for Chattanooga North. So this one needs to be pretty bomb proof in terms of being able to withstand any of that kind of impact pressure. But this one again won't be seen from 550 and then from 821. There's a possibility as you're coming down over here, you might be able to look down the hill and see just a bit of it, but with it being built in the hillside, this one's pretty hidden. This will be part of the meeting with Forest Service. I've already shown them this, and they're tentatively okay with this. They really wanted to make sure that the county was looking at it first before they made their call. But this, the road right now, you come up 821, you got onto this waste rock. Most people take a look and drive back down. Some people will continue up 821 to Silver Cloud. This is a much deeper road, average grades of 20 to 30%. It's kind of a Jeep can do it, but certainly not a Subaru kind of thing. So what we're looking at here is allowing for that same concept, the same use pattern that's being done right now, where people in their Subarus cruise up, look around, turn around and go back down. We'd be creating a bit of a turnaround at this point with an interpretive sign. We would take detailed pictures of the waste rock pile before we start capping it to really show what was there, talk about the history. There's a few of these farther down past the artist cabin as well, so we'd be following that. And if somebody's in the Subaru, they turn around and head out. If they're feeling froggy and want to go up to the Silver Cloud, they would jump on this reroute, which is similar grade and road quality as the rest of this road. So it's also a visual indicator of what's in store. So that's kind of the way we thought about this road realignment. All of it's going to be done on our land, but we still need Forest Service and county approval. This is the engineer drawings for that, so you can kind of get a sense of the grades there. And again, we built this to match the grades farther up, so we were kind of leading into what that road looked like. So I'll pause there. That's kind of all the upper structure. The next section really talks about the artist cabin area. So are there any questions right now on the upper bit, or they keep going? Okay. As a lot of you know, there's a lot of wetlands down there. And so the first thing we did was a full delineation. We kind of came up with 4 possible building sites where we could maximize the use of upland. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Went through and actually ranked these based on the things we thought were important. So for us, obviously, cost to build is important. How much wetland we'd have to cross, what's the visibility from the road, what's the visibility and impacts for artist cabin folks, and then how well could this be screened with vegetation, and then how much parking capacity would we have. And what you can see, the cheapest, easiest one is up here on number 1, but it scored lower on the other categories. In this case, it's like golf, the lower numbers better. So number 4, 1 in our site criteria here. So this is what 1 would look like. This is what 4 would look like. So I think this one's one where it keeps it as far away from the road as we can, but still not meaning a bunch of wetlands crossing. It's as far as we can get from the artist cabin and still hit setbacks. And it's also nice because I can hear Mill Creek from there, but still hear the traffic, but it's dominated by creek noise than it is traffic noise. Views from this site. So if you're looking north towards 550, you can certainly see it. But there's a lot of willows, a lot of ability to add willows there to screen a portion of that. When I look at the artist cabin, I can only see the top structure. Now, of course, when it's higher, it's a different view shed, but I'm just seeing the upper bit. And if you look here, I'm just seeing this chunk. And then if I look southeast again, I can see 550. So there is a view impact, but it is the one that we can screen the most and the one we can tuck the farthest back on that. And then when we think about materials and look, we've got some good examples there. So we've got the artist cabin itself. It's a little bit newer. The ore chute that's directly across 550 is an awesome example of kind of the theme we'd be looking at. And there's some old outbuildings a little bit closer to that. We've also got some great pictures of what was there in Chattanooga. And I don't think we're going to try to like pick this livery building and rebuild it perfectly, but the concept of using these kind of materials and similar themes is what we would be designing for this. The usage of this building would be, the first story would be garage for a few things. Snowcats, snowmobiles, any of our access equipment, any kind of maintenance equipment, as well as we are planning to put kind of a closet in for search and rescue to be able to store stuff in there. You know, safety in this valley is a big priority for us. And so we'd like to be a resource for search and rescue rather than just, you know, more people that are having issues up there. I'll talk about the safety stuff in the later one. I'm not going to skip over avalanche safety, but I've got a longer discussion on that. When we think about parking, the primary winter parking area would be here, kind of the northern part of the Bonanza Boy Plain. In the summer, we've got that portion. We've got some overflow parking here. There's possibility for some parking up at the lodge itself, but winter would be down here, out of the slide paths and avalanche impacts that we've modeled. And I just took a total swag at how many cars just to make sure that we were going to be able to hit that. So if you look at winter, you know, if we got 12 guest units, each driving 3 cars, we're needing 36 cars. You add some staff vehicles to that, you might need 41. I don't anticipate everybody bringing 3 cars, but wanted to make sure we had parking covered. And based on this square footage there, we're at like 73 parking spots. Now that's, you know, not perfect. I haven't mapped everything out, but I wanted to make sure that there wasn't a scenario where we were having people parking on the side of the road or anything like that. So we should be covered in the winter and definitely in the summer. Some discussion around the creek itself. So this Mill Creek is fed by Columbine Lake. It's really clean, even with waste rock and added drainage coming into it here. It's still a really clean creek. It's probably one of the cleanest ones in that Mineral Creek drainage. Down here, there's a mine that's draining into it that's pretty gross. And then when it hits Mineral Creek, it obviously becomes part of that. So the initial discussions we've had with Trout Unlimited is this is kind of a neat little stretch of creek that is a little bit, I guess, blocked from upstream migration from brookies and those kind of things. So it could be a good opportunity to rehabilitate and introduce some native species because they could be protected. No guarantee any of that's going to work, but what we are going to do is in this portion that's fairly sterile, be able to add pools and J hooks along that area. And then as we come into here, instead of being right against this talus, we'll move into this willow complex, add sinuosity and more J hooks, and then rejoin the creek here. This is the proposal from Trout Unlimited. This wasn't our idea, but we've talked about it with the Forest Service and they're really keen on it as well. So these are some of we're not talking about huge changes, but just improving that. We'll also probably have to add some wetlands in this area to compensate for some lots of wetlands down below. So that's kind of where we'd be able to do that as part of the creek habitat improvement. In the gorge itself, we're looking at a very limited Via Frade would be run very similar to the one in Uray, not the public one, but there's a Gold Hill, or the one the new one. So they've put in a private one. It's all guided. It's not like a just show up and do it kind of thing. But again, these would all be pretty minimal in terms of visuals. We're talking cables and handles and those kind of things. So not a lot of changes to the rock, just adding the ability to move up that gorge in good rock using Via Frade techniques. This is kind of a concept we looked at. If we think that tunnel is over 3,200 feet long, it could be that we'd be offer some mine tour possibilities to our guests, but I don't think this is, we're not trying to go do what's already been done in the county. But I think it would be, depending on what's down there, the possibility to do safety improvements and do that kind of stuff. But that's a pretty low priority for us. We are going to get this permitted through DRMS as a tourist mine, mostly to make sure that we're hitting all the key safety metrics. And then I think it also helps us to get insurance for this, because it's, when you're trying to get insurance for something that's kind of new or different, having it fit into some kind of category usually helps out. These are some of the initial thoughts around summer layout for campsites. These would be all installed in accordance with Colorado requirements for primitive campsites. And so these would all be walk to, bring your own tent, no water, no, facilities in terms of like on-site privies or anything like that. Most of those folks would be using shower facilities down here as part of the employee garage infrastructure here. None of this is for sure, but these are just some of the initial thoughts about, siting and trails and these kind of things, which we'd obviously have to get coordination with Forest Service and those kind of things. So. Some of the summer activities, I kind of mentioned most of this stuff. Winter obviously is a much smaller list of activities, and obviously no camping or anything like that in the winter. Really just being able to move up into the lodge from the lower area that's the crux of this issue, and that's what a good portion of this presentation will be about. So some of these things, skiing, Chattanooga North is pretty good backcountry skiing, and then that whole Columbine Lake Basin is fairly reliable sub 30-degree stuff as well. And this just shows some of the access points. This is Sam's Trees, where people will come in there and with not no danger, but because there have been, I think there's been one fatality in Sam's Trees in the last decade.
And multiple other accidents.
Yeah, and so this is one of those ones that really goes into why you guide. All our guests are guided. This isn't the concept like Opus Hut where even trained people can come in. That's not the plan at all. But with good guiding and the right conditions, that is an access to go ski Chattanooga North, or to access up here in the Columbine Lake Basin, which is a lot more reliable. This is Chattanooga North. These are the ski routes there. And then here's the Silver Crown Mine. These aren't, this is just out of the, I forget the guidebook for the skiing here, but I just pulled those out of that. So let me jump into avalanche. So I think that's really the crux of, well, one of the key issues here. So I mentioned the updates from CDPHE and US Forest Service. In your packet, you've got the email that Julie sent to Willie on the 25th at 1 p.m. And I was going to show the later correspondence I had with her, and this is really kind of a misunderstanding that I created. So in my mind, I knew where they were shooting howitzers from and had a good sense of where they were shooting them at. So I thought that the surface, I guess, firing area was something like what you see here in orange. And for orientation, CDOT owns everything in blue. The artist cabin here is red and we're green. So I was looking at seeing like, well, is there any possibility we could actually site the lower structure here? That avoids some of the wetland issues, and maybe the artist cabin folks are happier with that because it's screened a little bit better and on the other side of the road. So I reached out to Julie to see, is that possible to buy or trade land to get in here? And so I showed her, kind of a similar map. And so she raised kind of three concerns. Number one is we have a launcher site that goes directly over the top of the proposed building site. That's not the case, and I cleared that up with her. The other two were, protocol for shooting in the area, what if people are in the cabin? This is how we do it with the artist cabins. What if there's people recreating in the area, those kind of things. So those two are ones that we're going to coordinate with CDOT around, but this one around them shooting over us is not an issue. And so this is the later correspondence. You notice this is at 2:44 on the same day. My discussion with Julie, and so she actually sent me this map of where and how they fire there. Right, so from down here, I didn't even know they were shooting from there. They shoot this way, and you can see that star was my like hypothetical building site if we could get the CDOT land, and it's a really bad idea to build there. So her map really helped me understand that. But then you can see here's the artist cabin right in there, and this is our proposed building site. So still in those kind of general area, but well outside the firing path and the surface danger zone from the howitzers. So what she suggested is, hey, eventually we're probably going to put GazX or Obelix in here and not use howitzers anymore at all, but we're not at that point. So we've got to, think about this in the context of howitzers. We need to coordinate and talk between you and our winter team. They've got established practices with the current lodges when they're doing avalanche work, and so we would just kind of fit into that. She slammed this summer, so she wants to meet in September. I don't have that date exactly set yet, but we'll be talking with her right around the same time as the Forest Service. So just to clear up that one piece, so not to say that like there's no CDOT coordination needed or it's all fine, but the concept of them shooting over us is that's not an issue. That was my mistake there.
But I think this is an obvious condition that will be put on there,
Yeah,
correct?
you gotta.
Scott,
What's that?
is CDOT approval. And,
Oh, yeah.
and that meeting happening and.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah, I mean, so like, if you look at it, we've got a travel 550 there. That piece is, CDOT takes care of that, but it's still not, it still needs some judgment in that piece as well. So if we're doing any kind of active mitigation or traveling in that valley, close coordination with CDOT is critical.
Right.
So, so that was just kind of a intro there, just to clear up that one email. Like I said, doesn't mean that all the CDOT coordination is done, but it does show that they're not shooting over what we're proposing to build, and nor would we ask for that. So this is Dan and the folks from Dynamic are on the call right now. So if anything technical comes up, they're happy to take that. But we broke this really down into, and this isn't our avalanche safety plan. This is the concept of how we're going to develop that. So some of the details in there, but obviously we need to get everything lined out with CDOT first and those kind of things. But we're really looking at this in 3 chunks. So you've got the structures. These are, buildings and these kind of things. And this is where engineering can come in to prevent those from being destroyed. And if there's occupants in there, not getting hurt. That's actually the easiest piece of the whole avalanche thing, designing a building to have a fence above it that takes those loads. It's all pretty well thought out. We've kind of got that piece all done. The bigger issue is point number 2 is, okay, you've got this safe building up there, or mitigated building. How do you get somebody there or out? How do you have activities immediately outside the lodge or these other things and not harm somebody or put them in unnecessary risk there? And then the third piece is, okay, you've got the building taken care of and engineered, you've got a travel management plan, an avalanche safety plan. How do you recreate with these folks in the winter, especially in a way that doesn't put them in just generalized danger? So those are the 3 chunks that we broke this down into, and I'll kind of go into the high points on each one of those. So on the hazard to structure and occupants inside the structure, dynamic avalanche consulting assessed the long-term, which is 100 to 300 year design for the lodge and occupant. For the lodge itself, there's berm improvements above, there's a stopping wall, and then just in general, there's always some danger of powder in this whole place. So we'll design everything to 40 PSF. 40 PSF is essentially like a category 3, I think, hurricane, which would be like 100-mile-an-hour wind, something like that. So this just basically means shutters, make sure your windows are hurricane windows. It's all off the shelf, commercially available stuff. So nothing that's too tough to engineer around. Here's where those structures are at. One of the interesting things when we did the analysis here is that the bigger slides that are up above actually split above this and don't reach this point. But this hillside above, this talus slope, does have some small avalanche danger from just the hillside itself. And that's why the miners put in those berms. You can kind of see those in there. So part of that is going to be a stopping wall above the lodge that prevents any of those avalanches, the small ones from that small hill, from reaching or destroying the lodge. Number 1 is berm improvements. That's for anything that would be coming down and filling up the creek and then coming up and then coming over the lodge, right? So that's the real danger there is, sorry about that, is a 2 or 3 stage avalanche where early in the season, something comes down and fills up the creek partially. Maybe later in the season, there's another one that fills a little bit more. And then there's a final one that comes over. And so this gorge is really deep, but we wanted to make sure that we were planning for those things. So we do need a little bit of a berm improvement there to get that total height between the bottom of the creek and the platform to use 35 feet of elevation change. So it's essentially but the good thing is we only have to add anywhere from 2 to 8 to 10 feet in different places there. So that's pretty easy to do. Here's another view of that superimposed on the V cup. You can see in green where walls are going to be. So you got the stopping wall up above the lodge, and then down in the south, that piece there for the avalanches coming across the creek. And then we can actually model what the loads are. So this is kind of nice as we start designing what kind of steel beams do we need, what are the moments that we're trying to compensate for. This is as a geotechnical engineer, this is the stuff I kind of geek out on, so I won't go too far into this, but this is all designed to deal with that area. And it's interesting too, when you look at where the old timers built and what they did. They built here and they had some berms, right? So what we're going to do is build basically in the same place and improve upon what they did there. So 2, this is the biggest piece, is the hazard to access road and persons immediately outside the lodge, right? So this is managed through a comprehensive avalanche program. So daily forecasting when the lodge is in use, obviously during winter season, restrictions and closures during periods of high hazard, active avalanche control using helicopter and case charging as required, and then a full avalanche safety plan and standard operating procedure as part of this. So one way to think about this though is we've got summer, winter, and shoulder season. during the avalanche season, when the lodge is in use, that's where you've got the daily avalanche forecasting by, actually heli-trax would be doing that. The core avalanche season typically December to April, but it can begin in November. It can last until May. June through October, basically no hazard. And then in the shoulder seasons, that would be kind of the forecasting call of, when do we go into active mitigation and when are we not seeing those risks start to rise. So again, I put some months in here, but we're not going to stick to once April's over, we're good, right? That's going to be forecasting decision on that. So restrictions and road closures. Some examples there is gate and radio control, no stopping in avalanche areas, use of spotters and closed vehicles, and temporary road closure if needed. Limiting areas outside the lodge where people can be on foot, as well as temporary closures of lodge itself, based on hazard. For explosive avalanche control, this would be helicopter for large paths. Typically case or hand charging for the short slopes immediately upslope from the road, but that could also be helicopter. I talked with heli-trax. They did the Camp Bird Mine Road, and they said, yeah, 2 to 3 a month for your 4-month period. So you can kind of imagine 8 trips to maybe 12 trips in a year on this, or you just shut down the lodge for winter. Those are kind of your 2 options.
Pretty big expense.
It is a big expense. Yeah, it is. So that would be the economic discussion of, should we do that or just close down and be summer only, right? So coordination, CDOT, Forest Service, obviously county, and then the public as well, because they do a lot in this area. So some of the stuff that we've got lined out with our discussion with CDOT is some things that can actually make this safer in that area. So CDOT right now doesn't do, I don't think, like loudspeakers to warn people and these kind of things. That's by having that area up above, we can do those kind of things in a little bit more comprehensive manner. So I'll go through this pretty quick, but the avalanche safety plan, its roles and responsibility, avalanche control procedures, management strategies, what's the worker training, like what are the specific, area level 2 or whatever that these different workers need to have, what's the training we're going to do for our guests, what's the signage, rescue equipment, rescue plan, and then a full terrain atlas. On developing this, on the 5th and the 15th, I met with Todd Herrick. He's the owner of heli-trax. He's owned that for 16 years. He's committed to providing the forecasting and active helicopter mitigation for this. We met with Uray Silver Mines folks to talk about how they manage Camp Bird Mine Road. It's a lot longer, a lot more complicated, but there's no reason not to just kind of copy what worked for them, because that's got all the same people involved. And then 21st, on Monday, I sat down for a few hours with Matt Steen, who's the heli-trax no safety director, kind of basically went through a lot of this to get his input, and he had a few tweaks, but he's pretty excited about being able to offer that for us. This is the Uray Silver Mines. I think they called it, winter operation plan. But the first step is really identifying all those slide paths and then kind of how they're going to be mitigated, as well as control points. They've got miles of road that they had to deal with and pretty complex terrain. We've got 0.5 miles. So it's a much narrower bit, but the concepts all still work. I didn't produce this in full, full entirety. I just grabbed a few pages, but if you look in here, stuff like heli-trax coordinating with CDOT, it's all in there. So we'll have to make sure it fits this site, but this is what we're going to be starting from. It talks about other users in the area, coordination with the sheriff, the phone numbers, who does what and when, and it's very laid out, very methodical. Any questions on the avalanche safety plan approach? So the third piece is the recreational activities. So You go up there, you've got a lodge that's safe from getting hit with avalanches, you got people up in and out safely, but what are they doing and how's that safe? All the recreational activities with exposure to avalanche hazard will be guided. That's a hard stop. Not gonna deviate from that because we look at, from what I've seen in this area and from my own experience, like when you see a lot of these fatalities, it's people out on their own. Sometimes they don't have the right training, but sometimes they do have all the right training and they're making, risks that aren't appropriate. That's not to say there haven't been fatalities with guided groups, but that percentage goes down quite a bit. And so you also look at the Mill Creek drainage, there is continuous avalanche exposure in this area. And so I don't, depending on the time of year, I don't foresee a lot of people recreating right there. That those activities might be elsewhere. It could be they go ice climbing Uray. It could be that they go ski Silverton. It could be that they can go up and do Chattanooga North. All those things are on the table, but the approach here isn't to say all the recreation needs to start from the lodge. If that's not safe, we're not going to do it. And that's the guide's call based on the risk at the moment. So that we're going to be managing this mostly through hazard avoidance as well as group management. This is also a good discussion with CDOT when they talk about, hey, we don't want more people up there because that kind of goes with our howitzer operations. The good thing about all these folks is they're guided with continual communication with the launch, right? So there's nobody out there just kind of going rogue or goofing around. They're all with a guide. And so that is possibly an additional benefit to CDOT. If they're going out there to do howitzer work, they're going to do their best to try to warn people. But if we've got folks that that are in the area that can kind of give a little bit of a heads up on that, could make the valley a little bit safer. And that would be the hope. One more thing from just an additional concept, these are 27 individual claims. And those would be looking at 2 habitable structures. So we're really consolidating all these claims that, I don't think they're all buildable. So it's not like each one you couldn't have 27 cabins out there, but we're, in terms of a county risk concept, we're taking all those claims, creating 2 habitable structures with active professional avalanche management. So not to say zero risk, but I think definitely a concept around comparing that to, some number of individual cabin sites, which is what would be the alternate, I think, in this for this land. I think that's all the stuff there.
I think the one other thing as far as avalanche safety that needs to be incorporated is the road closure of 550
Yeah.
itself.
Right.
Either
Yeah.
evacuation of people or the ability to
Right.
shelter in place.
Yeah.
And that was kind of in that email.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's a critical component,
Yeah.
having the employees on site, if you're gonna have to keep people in place for a week up there, to have the ability to feed and shelter them.
Yeah.
What do you do if one of them's having a heart attack?
Yeah, exactly. What's the evac? And I think that's where those scenarios come in, is actually mapping those out. The gates closed and somebody's having a heart attack. What are those, what's the action plan in those instances? And then the other piece too is, I don't know what CDOT's going to want to do here. Like, they're evacuating artist cabin when they shoot, presumably farther down, which we'd be fine with that. However, we're far enough away. It could be that they want to evacuate the artist cabin folks to the lower garage. Maybe that's their preference. I don't know. That's why the meeting with the winter operations team is critical.
That's why I think
That's-
that's why that's gotta be a key condition of
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
That's
He
actually
condition.
all blowout going down there. I mean, down in Chattanooga was hit by an avalanche.
Right, yeah. But our build site is not in a hazard map.
What your road is.
The road, the whole 5.
No, the road to your, that site would be in part of that blowout.
Part of that might be, it's right on the edge there of,
It comes down up the hillside, runs all the way down the valley. It almost did in 2019, came way down the valley.
yeah, some of those Eagle and Telescope, when those let go, they'll cross the first one in and get the second.
That's what
one.
hit the town site.
Yeah. So.
I want to add that I did notify our emergency services, ambulance, search and rescue, emergency manager, fire, and sheriff that this meeting was taking place tonight. I sent them copies of the narrative and the avalanche study. And I did get, I received comments back from both Jim and Tyler. Primarily their concerns were avalanche safety, and Jim had another concern about the needing mining remediation, but that's being taken care of in the beef. I also, one of the things, if this project does move forward, one of the things that would need to happen would be actually a meeting with the applicant and all of the emergency services to sit down and really discuss what concerns and issues they don't have. It's everything from, it's not just avalanche, fire safety of the structure itself, because
there's no way to get a fire truck up to there, as we know, so. And we did reach out, Lisa, who was it that we reached out to? Tyler.
But he was just coming on a 30-hour call.
Those guys are pretty busy, so.
He get back to me, and I haven't wanted to bother him since then.
I wouldn't.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
These guys have been overwhelmed.
Yeah, we're letting them set the time and they've got some time to talk, so. But that is part of the concept here, is making sure if they thought it was helpful to have infrastructure in place as part of our garage, like we'd be happy to we're kind of planning on putting that in, so.
So, that would be one of the conditions also, right?
Yeah,
Is that meeting, right, Willie?
most
Yeah,
likely.
okay, I'm
I'm
throwing it out there, yeah.
It'd be obviously it's up to you guys what those conditions are, but I think that's reasonable.
yeah, and just, at what stage we want to see some of these things, because this is just sketch plan and this will go through all three processes. We'll have
Absolutely,
sketch,
yeah.
preliminary and final on this. And then, we should see a more polished plan if it comes back for preliminary, and then for final, it should be, there should be 0 conditions for final.
Right. These meetings will all happen and everything else, yeah, I get you.
Should be taken care of.
Do we want to hear from the public and then have commissioner comments after that?
I
I
think that's
have a ton
a
of
good
questions.
idea. I think that there's at least a few people, and maybe some folks maybe want to comment or have any questions for the applicant. So I think that's probably wise. Anybody in the Zoom audience or in the room want to speak at all?
I shouldn't, this is my wife while asleep, just so you guys
Yeah,
know.
yeah, I remember.
Even sure who was sitting behind us. I see no public comments. I think we can move on to commissioner questions and comments here.
Right, I just bring a bunch, and you've answered some, we'll just go from there, and I'm gonna jump
Yeah.
around a lot. You're planning on building on the footprint of the original building site, from what I can tell, and you said that when they put in that road, they probably destroyed most of that.
Yeah.
As an archaeologist, you had an archaeologist study the rest of it, and you were gonna incorporate like the little brick boiler site or something within.
That's what we're gonna try to do. So we did a cultural resources survey with John Horn of Alpine Archaeology. He identified kind of 3 pieces that we need to be looking at. The avalanche berms themselves are historically significant. We're gonna be leaving those. we need those.
Yeah.
The waste rock pile itself, the view of that had some historical significance. That's obviously, it's gonna be a different color, so that's an issue, not an issue, but. And then the third-
Changes the look of it.
change the look, and then the third, which we thought was the most kind of critical and kind of one of the big reasons why we did it, was the foundations and anything left over from those buildings. And he said, I forget what the quote was, but it was like, no historic significance whatsoever, completely disturbed. There are some artifacts, but it's been so disturbed, they're out of context. So when we do it, if we find anything, we're gonna keep it, probably try to incorporate it in. But there's not, from a historic, technical point of view, there's nothing significant around those pieces, but I will show you. This is not a great picture, but if you can see right down here, I'll make that a little bigger. There's like part of an old boiler foundation. We're gonna try to incorporate that into the kind of deck area. There's some more kind of like an old pipe here and some other stuff, like any of that we can preserve. We're gonna, but they basically said the old road came here. So historically, the miners went straight down in the middle of the valley. I don't know why they moved the road. My guess would be, so you're only getting avalanche risk from one side. But maybe it's just a little bit better grade, you don't have to go in the creek, who knows, but in the 40s is when they presume they cut this road in and basically just ripped out the whole foundation flow watch.
On our county regs forbid building on top of a historic site, Willie?
What's that?
I thought our county regs forbid building on top of a historic site.
No, I don't think it prohibits it.
Doesn't prohibit, it just says it has to be looked at.
Yeah,
That,
and in,
What part of the wall?
That's the old boiler foundation.
Oh, boiler better, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I put glasses on.
That's where we always hang our hammock when we're camping up there on those old deals, so, yeah, that was our big concern and one of the big reasons why we brought in the cultural resources to see, you know, what was up there, what can we preserve, and that kind of stuff, so.
I mean, traditionally, well, from a practical matter, if somebody comes in, build a cabin on a site, and they want to build where there's a historic structure or something, we you know, basically
they move it.
tell them to locate it in a different site. Some cases, and some of this has happened with the reclamation work as well. They have to, for whatever reason, they have to disturb it, so what they do is they come in and they document it. What was there, I mean, we had to do that at the Wall Smelter site, is we had to take,
Right.
you know, paper historical study,
Same with-
archaeological study to document what was there before we disturbed
Makes sense,
the
yeah. And DRMS had to do that out at Howardsville.
Right.
I remember.
Right.
And that was our thing, one of the reasons we want to build on that same site is really since we're trying to kind of rebuild similar to what was there, it's kind of like, and then there's a safety aspect too, so.
Okay. This is just my own personal comment. There was just a comment that this project will provide much needed outdoor recreation and mining tourism infrastructure in an area and that it's going to help alleviate the current impacts. Truthfully, by putting this there, you're going to actually create more impacts. You're putting more people in an area. So it's not going to alleviate any current impacts. And as far as the comment, there was no basic tourism and infrastructure between Uray and Silverton. I mean, there's the big lodge on top of Red Mountain. There's Opus, Telluride Helitrax is totally over on that area where Sam's is. So there is a lot of use, and just by I think it's almost naive to think that you're not doing an impact. There's this area is the ski area in the winters. You know, there used to be you could get fresh tracks, but you can't get fresh tracks anymore. It's totally overrun right now. And that, by putting a bunch more people in that Chattanooga area, it's just gonna put more impact both summer and winter. So this area has been, the whole San Juan County has been overrun. And we're, as far as I'm concerned, we don't need to be promoting San Juan County anymore. We got plenty of people here, so it's just my own personal observation as far as that. Jumping around, you're gonna try to do this rehab of Mill Creek as a mitigation for wetlands to service at Chattanooga. From what I've seen, especially around the curve there, Mill Creek's actually doing a pretty good job of rehab itself. The beavers are moving gradually upstream, building dams and things like that. I'd hate to see that even thought about being disturbed or anything like that. I'm not real thrilled about a total changing of the creek bed. You're talking about running that around. I don't see why you can't do that. Why you can't just put a couple of big boulders in the original creek bed to create that fish habitat without creating an entire new drainage or anything like that.
So just to take one of the comments in terms of like less impacts, that came when we met with the Forest Service. We showed them that their previous realty specialist, Lou Sovacool, I think. And so we kind of were showing what this could look like and trying to get their feedback, and he said anything that gets people out of Ice Lake, I'm for. Now, I hear your point too, and I think it's a valid one, but that was the reason we mentioned that is by having recreational opportunities in places with zero infrastructure, there is some concept of spreading people out, but that is arguable, and I totally.
And you did talk about, just in one of your slides, you mentioned access to Columbine Lake. Are you planning on doing trail access up into the valley between Porphyry and Columbine, so you can guests can hike up to Columbine?
Yeah,
then you just put more impact on Columbine Lake, which does not need any more impact.
There is an old mining trail there that
Right.
goes up. It's in horrible shape.
Is that
but yeah.
across Forest Service land? Most of
No,
it
it's all of it's on ours.
It is.
Yeah, I don't have the cool picture, but there's actually a part where they blasted out part of the cliff and put a little guardrail in there at one of the waterfalls.
Okay, is that
Yeah.
above, so right at Silver Cloud right there?
It's below that, so Silver Cloud's up on that cliff. If
Right.
you came down that bench, the waterfall that falls off of that bench on the other side,
Huh.
there's a
Okay.
place where the old, I guess the miners were going that way to go.
There's some kind of trail on the other side too, on the opposite side, there's a cabin site opposite of that too. But again,
But
my
I hear
idea
you,
is if you provide trail access to your guests, and you're talking 30 or 40 guests, and that's. If they
More
don't decide to go Columbine Lake, realistically, it is more impact on Columbine Lake.
Yeah.
You put more people in the area, you have more impact, so.
Yeah.
And Opus, that's definitely put bigger impact on Ruby Lake and Columbine Lake. They actually built illegal trails away from their cabin down to Ruby Lake. You can see them on the maps now. Those trails weren't there before. They're the ones who put them in.
Right.
And that created, it's created much more impact.
Right.
Sure.
So to your point on the Mill Creek enhancement, the beavers are kind of down in that area.
Down below the curve there.
Yeah, and so this, when we were talking about trout, they're like, this part's pretty good. Like,
Right.
you can't really improve upon nature
Yeah,
here.
it's been doing a good job.
It's this chunk where it's right against this talus. That
Right.
place is like relatively sterile. And so if you can you're almost making this piece look like this. And then by the time you connect those, then the whole thing is more like the downstream section.
So that whole area is between the creek bed and where you're showing the new one, that's all just flat right there. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I don't think it's something that like we do that and all of a sudden the trout fishing there is amazing and it makes everything great, but it is, it will be, we're told an improvement there from
Okay.
the open talus. But I get, we wouldn't want to like make it worse. So I totally agree with you.
And we were also talking trails in the wetlands area by Chattanooga with wooden boardwalks. Do we have
Right.
to do that? Can you just, why don't you just leave it a wetlands without
Yeah, I think that's our hope, but if we have to get to an area, and we don't wanna fill the wetlands, that would be, if it's just a foot access. So I'll give you,
I'm just saying, why not just leave it as a wetlands
right,
without anything in it?
yeah, well, I think that would be, a good possibility, but if you look at so an example is we'll probably follow the old road there. I don't know what the name of that, but it's the one that was there since 1898. And then be able to come in to this build site. So we've got a little bit of fill, but we're pretty much on upland almost the whole way. If our build site's here, but we've got some parking up there, there may be people that are wanting to shortcut that rather than walk all the way around. So that would be where we would do something like a small boardwalk to this upland and then a small boardwalk here, almost like connecting island. But we're trying to figure out how to do this without filling a bunch of stuff. And then critically here, these wetlands are connected and there is flow through them at certain times of the year. And so when you fill, you block. Even if you put in culverts and those kind of things, you can have some issues with that. So if we can be talking about boardwalks, these kind of things that are fully permeable, if we have to be able to get from point A to point B, that's the way we would approach that. So that was the impetus for that discussion. All right. We kind of want to not.
My suggestion is leave it alone as a wetland.
Yeah.
And then, and the problem with both this road and a potential boardwalk, it's all visible from the road above. You're gonna.
Oh,
Now,
right.
all you see is just a clean wetlands right
Yeah.
now, and you're proposing, we're gonna see multiple lines going across this from up above.
Right.
So it's definitely scenic impact.
Yeah, and that's a good point, is this is from the lower 550,
Yeah.
you're talking about the elevated
Upper
portion.
550, all this is gonna be quite visible. Okay, I'm jumping around.
Yeah.
here, sorry. You have water rights on Mill Creek yet for the hydrant generating part?
Yeah, it's in the works, but we've got the plan for it. We talked with what is it, Southwest Water
Water
Conservation.
conservation.
So all those discussions we haven't obviously filed on those yet, but it's in the binder, the water rights plans.
Okay. And just another personal comment, I mean, to me, this is one of the most dangerous avalanche valleys in the entire San Juan. I mean, it's just swept from every single direction, and even though you've taken precautions like fortified buildings, avalanche predictions and things like that, you still are in one of the most dangerous areas in the San Juans. They can do whatever they want. I mean, you can forecast all you want, and you get a 50 degree day that was unanticipated, and it could slide right down there. So, and one of my arguments with many of the cabins that get proposed near avalanche chutes is you may make a fortress out of your cabin, but it doesn't protect you if you're outside of the cabin. If you're riding in your snowmobile or taking a slow snowcat up, nobody's protected in that little section there. Once you get them inside the structure, protected, but there is no protection outside of a structure. If you're trying to load up a whole bunch of people for skiing, take them down on a snowcat and stuff like that, there's a lot of exposure underneath these slide paths.
Yeah.
They'd be protected in a building, but not there. So that's just a comment.
Yeah.
And as far as avalanche mitigation, you're talking dropping charges and stuff like that. What are you gonna do about all the people from Silverton or wherever that are recreating out there? How are you gonna contact people that are already up there?
Yeah.
That's not allowed speakers. I don't want to hear loudspeakers in the San Juans. That's takes away from your aesthetic experience of the San Juan. It's got loudspeakers. So I don't know how you're gonna protect those people that are. You're gonna just look for cars down below. There's 5 cars there. Look for 5 groups of people, or
Well, I think you've got that, certainly the actually seeing what's going on out there on foot, but Polytrax has an SOP for this, like they bomb the whole camper road, right? And so they've got a way of looking for people first. None of these things are absolutely perfect, but it's, that's the concept of being able to get out there and follow those SOPs that they bomb for Uray or Ophir for the county there. And so it's not, this wouldn't be me out there, learning that.
No, you'd have to have
Yeah.
experts, but,
Yeah,
okay,
I mean, that's the same issue CDOT has to deal with.
right.
You do you do a
recon.
recon trip in the helicopter.
So it's a mountain has to
Sometimes.
deal with that as far as.
Anything that railroad does too.
buildings and stuff like
When
that.
they do our county roads as well, too, they have to deal with it.
They fly over the known ski pass and stuff like that.
Yeah, you gotta do a recon trip.
It didn't say there was much danger from rock slides. I'm sure there's a little bit of rock fall potential right at the adit. What about mudslides? I mean, was there much, I
yeah,
didn't get far enough in there to see the mudslide impacts, but
there are debris flow dangers like down the actual creeks themselves, with the 2 locations we picked, they'll have a
okay,
debris flow. And then the rock fall, we did a model of the rock fall coming down, a statistical analysis, and basically it said that the avalanche forces are 20 times what the rock fall issue is. So anything we're putting with avalanche takes care of it.
okay,
And it's interesting, not to kind of geek out on this, but those berms up above, you see there's 3, it's like a
Right.
chevron. I went up and cleaned out this berm, last summer. And it took me about an hour. All the rock fell over 100 years.
wasn't
Down
very-
there.
it
It
wasn't very
blew
much.
my mind, yeah, it was. And there was 1 or 2 that were, this size, not ones that I was able to clean out. But it basically took every bit of rock that had come off those
Oh.
cliffs. So that was kind of a nice
sure.
deal.
I was a little confused on the primitive camping. It's showing primitive camping above the Chattanooga curve, you kind of proposing by that, by
There's,
that hot springs or
let's see.
yeah, the slide of that.
Yeah, and some of those sites we haven't totally picked yet, but there we go. In this one is the rock pool, the warm springs there.
Okay,
There's a little bit of a tree area here. This one's actually part of a blasted out mine there. It's got
There's a
this
little one
really
there, yeah.
cool view out. So, and there is a little trail up to it from the old railroad grade. This one's there's a zinc mine there that's got a lot of cold water coming out of it, out of like watercress and those kind of things. So those are some of the ones that we were looking at. These ones are obviously out in the forest, and then some of these are on benches above the creek with really good views. So
how visible are those camping sites going to be from the road that are above there?
these
That's
are-
where the hot springs are, that's fairly well hidden.
Yeah.
Is that on Forest Service or land right there, or is that on your claim right there? The hot
this
springs?
one, that one, the rock pool one is ours on our land.
So everybody that thinks that's public.
So, yeah, we let people use it. It's
Yeah,
not,
it's kind of new to do
yeah,
that.
the bathtub's not on our land. It's close, it's like a foot away or something like that, so. We thought when we bought if you look at the county maps, it looks like the opposite. It looks like we own the bathtub and not
Hmm.
the rock springs. When we had it surveyed, it was backwards.
Okay, and you were proposing a campground down in the trees down here?
Yeah,
Will you with the arrow just kind of draw the road to the proposed structure and then show me where the campground is in relation to that?
so this is where the structure would
It's
be.
back over farther. Let's see,
Oh, I'm sorry.
there we go.
There we go. This is where the build site would be, close to the. art
Oh,
gallery.
there it is, okay.
Yeah, so it's just a little kind of jump through
So
and there's
the
some logging roads
potential-
in there too.
Cabin side, it would be way up in the trees there in oh no, that's your, sorry, that's your index, sorry.
Yeah, oh, yeah, sorry, yeah, no, we're not,
It's possible campsite. I guess.
yeah, no, we
Sorry.
sorry, go up there.
Okay. Let's see. I think one of the things we have to think about, as far as our scenic stuff is, we're not talking just visibility of structures, you're talking a major parking lot too, a big parking lot. I'd like to see a picture of that parking lot from up above and below with cars in it, just a Photoshop thing, because
Mhm.
and that's the thing with a project of this scope, you can show we got a building here, but you're gonna have a bunch of cars here, you're gonna have some outbuildings, you're gonna have snowcats and vehicles, so visual impact is gonna be
Mm.
much bigger than just
The
showing
building, yeah.
everything with story poles or something like that, and I'd definitely like to see what a parking lot would look like, not only from the lower road, but from the upper road. I think as far as scenic views, it would spoil the view.
I think we can
Perfect.
easily get that angle, so.
Okay. I do feel like, because of I'm just jumping around again, because of the avalanche there is that potential for danger to yourselves, danger to your clients, and also potential danger to our EMS, if they get called out, and they're not gonna come out on some of this stuff. There's a big slide in a howling blizzard, they are not gonna expose themselves to that, and then they've had to make that call a couple times where they did not go out, even though somebody needed help, they did not go out.
In the fatality that happened in Sam's Trees, they had to make that call.
That was a hard call, because they did go out on the one fatality, they did go out that night in a blizzard, right? The blizzard started once they got up there.
For Sam's Trees, for the fatality that.
Yeah, the camera was on that. Did they have to come down at night in that, and didn't it start to snow on them? On that fatality, were you on that call?
No,
Yeah, there was, it was a little iffy. I mean, they, whether they should have been, doing that call at night, but they had already kind of committed to that.
yeah, but I
I'll ask Cam.
think for the fatality on Sam's Trees that they went out and they decided no, that was not.
They went out the next day or something maybe, or?
Well, I think they went out and they decided that it was,
I just can't remember. I'll ask,
I think they had.
I'll ask Cam because he was on that.
Yeah.
on that call.
Yeah.
To that point, I think that's, one that would be really part of our safety plan, like when do we evacuate entirely and just not be up there? The other piece though, is we really want that infrastructure to be something that search and rescue can use. So I don't, there's that question of like having more infrastructure up there, it creates more opportunities for them to have to respond, which is the negative side. The positive side is having, infrastructure up there that they have full use of as well. And those, I don't know that they balance out. I'm just saying that both of those are part of the discussion with EMS.
I mean, and now this is in the have to be like 79 or 80 before we had better communication, but isolation can happen even with good prediction. A big storm can dump 2 or 3 feet of snow. It happened to us, Fort Lewis Geology Club at Chris George's. All of a sudden there was 2 or 3 feet of snow that night. Roads were closed, we were totally isolated. And none of us, we were out in the backcountry, but none of us had one single bit of avalanche experience. Sliding been triggered everywhere, but that isolation can happen for sure.
But you got satellite phones in reaches, and
Yeah.
technology's come a long ways.
Well, and the ability to shelter in
Present.
place if we need to, so that would be part of that concept, if there's just no way in or out, you're totally snowed in, like. Weeks worth of food and water and those kind of things, so.
Yeah.
And I'm just jumping again to the wetlands, you are proposing. Essentially bulldozing a road across to a new site, bulldozing an area where there's gonna be a new structure. And bulldozing a parking lot and willows and wetlands, I mean, that's just something to think about. They answered my questions about the CDOT launcher site. I think it'd be great if you could build on the other side of the road. It'd be much more hidden and a lot less damage. So
That was why we proposed that to CDOT.
CDOT wouldn't let you do
Yeah,
it.
they
because you're in
said no.
the-
Yeah, and I'll,
Okay, but that at the time you proposed that looked like a good idea.
yeah, and if they change their methods there and that became possible, there's always that. Concept, but I think that with their howitzer paths now, it's not, none of those sites are feasible.
Any considerations of impacts to wildlife like lynx, moose, elk, anything like that?
I think we're gonna be working with Division of Wildlife on the trout stuff, but I think there would be obviously there's moose in there.
Definitely
Three moose that live in that valley, and so there would be some possible impact there. I've never seen any elk in there. There's deer up high. And then obviously the beaver down below.
Right. And Possibly, I could say possibly links, but I personally. don't
Yeah,
know.
I've never. seen
I'd you'd have to ask Department of Wildlife.
Yeah, and part of that'll be a discussion with Forest Service too, on if we're plowing 821. Sometimes those things can, change links behavior or those kind of things. So,
Sure. I think that's all the questions I got.
I think it covers it for me. I don't have that.
From the planning commission perspective, a lot of what we had discussed was avalanche, and I mean, I do think that this plan for avalanche control it went a long way to satisfy some of our concerns with avalanche mitigation. Because when I first saw it too, I thought, the only way that I really think that we could make this foolproof is if you use helicopters and explosives to get there. So that to me is a big step forward to creating an avalanche mitigation plan, and that's feasible and viable for the site. The CDOT email for us and just what we discussed is that CDOT is just like a really integral player in this, and that's a huge condition for even preliminary approval in the next phase.
The thing with CDOT is, just access permit.
Yeah,
What do you mean, just access? Oh, access.
The road access.
yeah, the road access,
Yeah.
so yeah, to make sure that
Whether they're gonna require
That's
any.
a kind of a blind corner right there as far as people pulling out from those willows right there.
it is and it isn't, like it's got really good visibility as to who's coming and going from further up, but coming out onto that road, they may see it differently.
Right down from the right,
Like,
like if you're up
Somebody
high, you
coming-
can see somebody, but if you're down here.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
yeah, and
I'm sure they're gonna have some requirement on that.
not to
On that
say,
acre.
Yeah, we turned in the permits. I don't know, have we heard anything back from them or?
that,
No,
that,
I did 3 CDOT access permit applications that are in the binder, that I didn't hear anything back from them yet. That department's really backed up.
there is, I mean, people generally go pretty slow around that corner. You're forced to go quite a bit slower than,
But there have been.
but there's a lot of accidents that happen.
40
where
years
people
I've been
not.
here, there's been a lot of accidents on that curve.
Yeah,
Truck accidents.
yeah.
People going too fast, a couple of them.
Weird
Somebody
ones.
cutting corners.
Weird one, there was a guy who just from going uphill ended up off the side of the road on the uphill side of the road. Before the turn.
Going up.
Going up it, yeah, he ended up on the other side of the road, and we actually had to go back up to the ADS and because they have a little cell phone booster from the porch there, you can actually get cell phone service to be able to call for help.
Huh.
We had to drive back up there and call for help for the guy.
Tommy Whiff built his house from the 2x4s unloaded from a truck wreck at Chattanooga. Called the insurance company up and said, I'll pay you 10 cents on the dollar, and that's how he built his house.
Wow.
Yep.
What else did we talk about? I mean, Kenny, I guess spent some time there, when it was owned by Frank Montanetti.
When the mine was owned by Montenetti.
Mhm.
Yeah, and he said.
Yeah.
He worked there a little bit.
He actually
Oh.
worked there a little bit. I don't think he said he went inside of the mine workings as much, but he was there doing some work. So if, from perspective of somebody who spent some time up there, he had some interesting, like little tidbits of knowledge and things like that in the area and mine. So, yeah.
I remember my old Scout couldn't get up that road,
Yeah.
the steep road.
I bet not with the stock engine.
Tried.
I'm trying, will you think any of the other things that we talked about on the planning commission?
What'd you guys,
Sorry,
what'd you say as far as wetlands impacts? What kind of discussion did you guys have on that?
We didn't discuss very much of the wetlands impacts, at least not for preliminary or become one like preliminary
Okay,
side of things. I thought you made some really good points though about wetlands, and definitely with those boardwalks going across. I mean, I don't see why you can't just walk around on the road, but
Yeah, just
I'd agree with that.
have them walk on the road over there and then,
Yeah.
That's,
first I just.
Yeah.
Leave as much of nature alone as you can,
Yeah,
if at all possible.
I think we can do that. That's good feedback.
yeah, I don't, can you think of any
I
other
think
things that we
pretty much
discussed?
covered everything tonight, the
Yeah,
planning commission, but
yeah,
trying to think if there was anything else that they threw out. That didn't get voted tonight.
yeah. Yeah, just, it just in general, I think, you know, parking areas, keeping them out of the Eagle telescope area. In the winter times, you know, and trying to mitigate, you know, people having to cross those necessarily to, is smart, but not. You know, just that, those slides are huge.
Big,
Oh, yeah.
slides,
Yeah.
they're huge.
I agree with Scott. I'm gonna echo what Scott said about seeing what the parking lot looks like,
Yeah,
Mhm.
you know, after this.
Yeah, cause that, I mean, we do have our scenic. You know, qualifications in a parking lot isn't scenic. That's all I
Yeah.
can say.
I bet you could generate that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's probably a pretty easy way to superimpose some cars or, I mean, the only issue is like we probably should have done kind of worst case kind of thing, but I don't, it's not what we're gonna, it's not like it's always gonna be full. So I don't know how to, I guess we could kind of figure average working on that, but,
And I just hate to see a wetland destroyed for parking lot. That is.
yeah,
And
most
rubs me the wrong way.
of that is upland. I was to
I
be
will say
clear.
one thing on the flip side of the parking too, is that if we have. Parking areas that are available that aren't in avalanche zones. That might be a little more beneficial. A lot of the recreationalists. Sam's Trees Park right underneath that.
It's unbelievable
that
they park.
cemetery run.
Park.
Unbelievable they park.
Yeah,
But I mean, this is supposed to be a private parking lot. Are you proposing the public be allowed to use it?
well, I think, you know, that blue parking lot area, how many cars did you say you could fit in there? It was like,
This is, I think 73, but like,
Yeah.
that was, the reason I did this slide is not to say we're gonna have all that. It was just to basically say, because I figured they would anticipate the question of like, is there enough parking? Is it
Yeah.
possible?
Right.
And so I wanted to address that, but it also like kind of cuts both ways, right? Where you say, is there enough parking? Yes, but then you got a bunch of cars there which have a visual impact, which is absolutely true. So,
With your, thoughts to actually have a paved parking lot there, or just,
no, this would be gravel.
I mean, that in itself is.
Yeah, don't do pavement.
No,
would
gosh, no.
minimize the visual impact.
And,
Yeah,
and,
but-
you know, to go to the boardwalks, like, one of the reasons we were trying to do that is that if we were gonna do any trails in there, like, we wanted to kind of celebrate the wetlands rather than trash them, and so that the boardwalks, we're gonna have some, we had anticipated some signs and, you know, some kind of like, and I know that other people wouldn't like that, but that was the thought process there. is that-
that hasn't even been received well in town.
Okay,
for,
so-
like, Riverwalk
That's
stuff.
good
in town.
feedback, yeah,
Just
so-
as like.
We minimize
yeah,
impacts and
right.
keep it
Like,
simple.
because
Leave it as
we've
a
talked
lot.
about building.
That's the beauty of it.
Sure, yeah.
It's just leaving it alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's been discussion about building, you know, river trails
Mhm.
along the Animas River corridor, and some of that would cross through wetlands, and it's, I wouldn't say that it's like, that it's, you know, got people with their pitchforks and torches out, but
Right.
there's been some pretty vocal
Yeah,
opposition.
okay, great, that's good to know.
That's also. So. Yeah. I think that's. All the comments, I really had, how'd you guys feel about conditions? Do you guys want to see any extra conditions on sketch approval at this point, or? Is there other, would you like to see other conditions kind of brought through in preliminary?
Yeah, I mean, these are kind of minimal and basic conditions that I put on.
I think that the conditions always have kind of a couple nice pictures that Willie took of the site at the bottom of one of the pages. Yeah, it's on it.
Yeah. things covered in number 2, so
And I think the emergency services
Yeah.
meeting is covered under 4 too.
Yep.
Comprehensive
I think it is covered over there.
for that. I don't know that it's necessarily a condition, but for sure for preliminary, we'd like to see, the parking lot visual.
Yeah. Add that as a condition.
So we can either add that as a condition now or just recommend that come back to us for preliminary.
Yep.
Yeah, why don't we just include that?
Okay, all right.
As a condition,
Condition 10, visual impact of parking areas, be submitted or be. Oh, we did just ask about, recreational access to through here, just to make, there's a lot of private land in this valley and, Mr. Barrett seemed, pretty willing to, work with people who are accessing for recreational skiing and hiking and things like that, which is.
Right, so they're probably skiing out on your property right at the moment.
Yeah, the only kind of other discussion on that is we own all the land up here on the above 550,
Right,
and talking with CDOT and other folks just to see like how keen they are on people skiing that. And whether they would, encourage us to discourage people from that portion. I'm talking about the Chattanooga South
Yeah.
telescope. I mean,
I know one guy triggered a slide and rode it 2,000 feet down the road and lived.
yeah,
That's big terrain.
There's a girl, actually.
Sure, it was a girl.
Yeah.
That's what kept ski touring from happening
Yeah.
one day, because the
Yeah.
road was closed. But,
Yeah.
so that, I guess that would be the only, like, these chunks down here where people are skiing Chattanooga North and all
Yeah.
that, like, great, like, we're backcountries for all kind of stuff, but if in the only caveat would be if we're talking with CDOT and they're like, man, if you could discourage people from being on the Eagle and Telescope and that area, then we would then also actively discourage that, because we own that, pretty much that whole hillside. So maybe a longer discussion, but we wouldn't, we'd want to be working with CDOT on those pieces.
Yeah.
But I don't know what the county's opinion is on that. I mean, obviously the general is like, let people cross your land, and we're really keen on that.
Yeah.
However, the safety piece would change for that portion alone.
I think that's more of a CDOT.
See down in the
Concern on the
hard
highway.
thing, it's a hard thing to police.
Right. Yeah.
Because people are gonna ski wherever they want to ski.
Yeah.
A lot of times.
If there's no other commentary, recommend someone make a motion.
I'll make a motion, Bonanza Boy. LLC PUD sketch plan, including all conditions.
Yeah, and then do we need to spell out the condition 10 there for the parking area? Or is that,
Including number 10.
yeah,
You do that, Willie?
yeah,
Alright.
I got it.
I'll second. Unless you'd like to go, that's all right, okay. All right, any more discussion amongst the board? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
All right.
Just as a question for the next step, the next one would be preliminary. Obviously we got the conditions and those kind of things, that be some more detail on everything and then satisfying all those, or what would be the next?
Essentially, next step would be for me to sit down with you and
Okay.
Lisa or whoever, and I'm putting together a shopping list of things that
Right.
I want to see in the preliminary, and we'll sit down and go through all those and discuss those, and And, in addition to these conditions, but I mean, a lot of them are just where I want more information or more detail or what I need answers on. And some of the stuff we touched on, like water rights and, I mean, and highway permits, forest service permits, those things are all gonna have to be in the.
Yeah.
A lot of unanswered stuff there.
Yeah.
All the fun stuff.
Right.
To me, the biggest, still unanswered thing, even though you've had experts look at it, is the avalanche danger. That's a tremendous avalanche danger in that area. You gotta prove to me that you can protect yourselves and your clients, both inside and out, because it truly is swept from all sides. I mean, even late in the spring, you see where that big slide just piled up right against the mine dump right there. And if it piled up against the mine dump, that means there was a big air blast ahead of it, and unless that was a spring slide.
It was a spring slide, but I know
Then it
it came
just
down,
went choke, but
a lot of material,
yeah,
and all the way down to the,
right.
to the ground surface there.
In fact, the spring slides, I think, are just as damaging sometimes because they have so much weight.
Yeah, a lot of force on those.
Well, and one of my comments at the planning commission meeting was, to not become complacent. I mean, we can have this wonderful plan and we can have 5 years of minimal snow impact or the slides just don't build up or whatever, and then we have a.
2019.
And people are like,
There it is.
No big deal, and you get complacent, and then all of a sudden you get hammered, and that's when.
And Red Mountain closed for 3 weeks with, 3 or 4 feet of snow on the road from Silverton over because they're not gonna plow because it's too dangerous to plow.
Yeah.
So.
And the other piece is just being able to maintain insurance and these kind of things, I mean, all the stuff that you guys are, I'm gonna have to do all that for insurance providers as well, so. It's, that's a big piece.
Convince those insurance
Yeah, exactly,
providers.
yeah.
They're not,
I
they're not
wouldn't
in
want
a-
to, I wouldn't want to see that check.
No, they're not in a good frame of mind right at the moment.
That's
Bad
right.
insurance people.
All right, thank you
Okay,
guys very much.
Yeah, thank you guys.
He's on.
Clem, apologize for keeping you waiting here for an hour and 30 minutes past
Hey,
here.
Austin, can you give me just 1 minute?
Yeah,
I gotta touch base with my employee.
Sure, no worries. I'm gonna just continue to apologize to Clem.
All good.
I should have looked at this and we should have traded your appointments here so that we could have finished with yours when you guys were here. I apologize. I should have done that at the beginning
No
of the meeting.
worries.
No worries. We came from 2 hours at Time Hall and kind of saw what was going on and figured probably best to go home. So
Okay, well, I hope you at least got some
We're here.
dinner or, got to sit
Yep.
down, kick your shoes
Exactly.
off and relax. Yeah, we'll wait for Scott to come here. I understand, having to deal with employee issues. Must be rough for the 9 o'clock at night call. It's not like they're having unruly t-shirt customers at 9 PM. At least I hope not.
No.
He probably figured he'd be back at the shop to shut down
Yeah.
at 9 o'clock, so he's probably don't know what they need to do.
Yeah.
well, I thought that was code for having a pee.
I don't think it was. No, he had a real issue. Everything okay?
Well, I just wanted to I was just checking in with my employee, telling him, close the back door, just everything, just making sure.
Yeah.
Very good. Take care of business.
Yep.
Yeah. We were praying you didn't have unruly t-shirt customers at 9 PM, but.
Well, I pray that myself. I want to close, man. I'm ready.
That's-
God, after being in there from like 6 in the morning until 9 at night, and usually the people that come in at 9 are just most of the time killing time.
Yeah,
It's like a.
looking for somebody to talk to,
Hey,
trying to knock it back to their tent in the rain.
yeah, you hit it right there. It's usually campers not wanting to go back to their camp. It's raining. Hit it right on the nose. It's bad when they sit Indian cross-legged style in front of my books. It's like.
Oh,
really?
no.
I know you want to kill some time. But
Okay.
All right, Clem or Willie, you wanna start us off with the go code?
Sure, if you remember at the last meeting, Clem and Lisa were here to ask if the commissioners would, support the GoCo grant. For the single track society, and the consensus was to do that. They mentioned that we needed to do a resolution, we needed to do a letter of support, to GoCo that explained that financially we could, deal with the project, and then they also requested just a general letter of support, to go out to other funding agencies. And so that's what was in your packet. If it's okay, with you guys, I think the first item we would do is just, resolution number 2023-08. A resolution of the Board of County Commissioners of San Juan County, Colorado, supporting the single track society's grant application for a community impact program grant from the State Board of the Great Outdoor Colorado Trust Fund, and for the completion of the Akron Baker Trail project within the Baker Park Trail System.
All right, anybody want to give me a so moved?
yeah, I'd move that we approve resolution number 2023-08.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
All right,
Aye.
And then the letters of support, I think we can do a whole one motion.
All right.
If you have any questions on them or
Nope.
seen any typos or.
I make a motion, we send out the letters of support, both of them.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, well, I'm sorry you guys had to wait so long for that.
No worries. We won't keep you guys any longer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
And how's progress going in the last couple of weeks? Still on track and ahead of schedule?
Yeah, it's great. They're killing it. It's looking really good, and yeah, we had some good conversations with GoCo, so we're feeling hopeful about the grant. So all is looking good.
Awesome.
Nice.
Right on. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Just wondering if my pen is gonna finish the job. Front back too, saving paper, I like it.
Thank you.
Right, public comment. Okay, I think we're down to, let's do public comment. Unless we have any more correspondence to discuss first.
I did have one additional thing that we didn't get to. And again, this one's just pretty much informational only. It's the Durango Fire Protection District. When they approved their impact fees, one of the conditions was that they have to update their service plan, or do an update. And so they're posted that on in the newspaper, and they have to notify us and notify the county, and so we're being notified. So if you have any comment to make on that, but think there was anything significantly changed in it.
Okay.
So we don't need to do anything, just
Okay.
information only. If, you know, if you see something that you want to point out, just let me know. We will address it.
All right.
That was the purpose of that was to, now there was a case that came out fairly recently that just talked about the need to make sure service plans are updated and are current in terms of the services offered by special districts. So it's a pretty standard process that they're going through just to comply.
Okay. We'll go ahead and take a look through that as we can here. And anything else before we open it up to public comment? If there's any other members of our listening audience who would like to comment on any items discussed here or elsewhere in the meeting or elsewhere in the county? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Move on to commissioner and staff reports. You guys have any meetings? You had EPA stuff.
We did, and we discussed some of it. We did go out and look at the work being done on the tailings pond. And
You guys did it in your meeting?
no,
Oh,
we did.
oh, you and me. Oh, yeah.
We just ran out there.
Starting to lose it, aren't I, Scott? That was you and me, wasn't it?
9 o'clock.
That is.
But,
Sorry about that.
You know, just, the ditch is being made deeper, which makes a deeper or a more rollover chance. We were worried about how deep the ditch was gonna be as far as the snowcat being able to go through there. We not only asked Loki, but we're gonna ask Sites what he thinks about that ditch being that deep as far as, you know, can they fill it in? And I know Loki always lets it build up and then tries to, you know, put the snowcat there, but that's a deep ditch. I just don't.
I was a little confused as to why, because Jimmy doesn't groom that section usually. It's usually the town who's.
The town does that section,
But
right?
yeah, it doesn't matter. It's the same size snowcat though.
Yeah.
But that,
Okay.
but we asked EPA to contact Sites and ask for his comment on.
Oh, you did?
We did,
That's
today we did.
Excellent.
Yep.
I don't see it
Okay,
happening.
then there was the liner, I guess they were unaware there was a liner, right? Before they started digging, but they did say they are gonna line it.
Well, they are now.
Yeah, before they put those. big
If they weren't
liners.
going to, were they?
I don't know, but if you go,
Okay.
if you see have you been by there lately?
So yeah.
You can see tailings exposed on the slope. We gave them a ration about that because they scraped the slope, scrape the vegetation. They really need to replant the whole thing eventually and get something growing on that. But you can see tailings being exposed in the ditch. They're much deeper than they had anticipated. And we said, look, you know, if you don't line that, the water's gonna go through those tailings right into the animals, but they are gonna line it. The whole reason for the ditch is for 100-year, not flood event, but a storm event. They're worried about 100-year storm, just deluging that, which you could, you know, if you had a huge storm event, you could make some rivulets that maybe would go down there, but it's a several hundred or $1 million project for what I think is.
$16 million, yeah.
Well, but I mean, that ditch, I'm not convinced that ditch is needed.
If it's a 100-year storm event like that, just let it flood over the road and.
Oh, yeah, we said if it's 100 years, our argument was if it's a 100-year storm event, it's gonna be a 100-year flood event too.
Yeah, the road's gone
The
too.
road would be gone too,
Yeah.
so all that work they did anyway is gonna get washed out.
Yeah.
We asked about, you know, Louis even, he says, I'll do the shoulder work, just, I mean, he wanted it his way, but I don't know what they worked out, as far as shoulder work, but we did, and the first thing I hit him with was, you said you weren't gonna do this, and they did it anyway, but, and I don't know if that's Corps of Engineers saying they have to put in this 100, or if it's EPA saying they have to put it in, but, and then they put in looks like they put in a new ditch above the repository too, right? Isn't that
They
right?
did.
Yeah, and there was already.
And that was,
There was.
Sunnyside Gold, that was in there originally.
Yeah,
That's to handle that
yeah,
whole stormwater thing.
Yeah, I mean,
And the same way for the upland,
yeah,
upland ditch.
I mean, I thought
I
that was
mean-
interesting because Sunnyside put in those upper ditches to handle
correct,
100-year
correct.
flood event, so that it would take the water around. So everything else is gonna be from that upper ditch to the tailings pond,
Correct.
which is pretty,
Are the elk gonna be able to walk through the ditch, or are they gonna?
We did bring up the elk thing too, about
Exactly.
why they need to really.
That's their natural migration.
Well, they use that a lot, and we said, you know, they use that as a pasture in the winter because they can't find anything anywhere else, and they're disturbing the whole area.
They use it now.
Yeah, and we're saying then start receiving the sides and trying to get that growing better. So that you at least can provide a little bit of food for them, because you're taking all this away. They just, they have not a clue as far as the elk habitat in there. I don't feel like they had one single clue. All you have to do is walk and you see elk poop all over the place, and we see it in the winter. You
Yeah.
see all those trails crisscrossing because they're so desperate.
Right,
For
from
anything.
substation up.
Yeah, and that area has such good southern exposure, they can pause up and up and find something to eat, but. EPA seemed totally oblivious to that.
I think it's one of the big reasons why we have a year-round elk herd population still up here, is that they're able to find food and forage there.
Yeah,
And some years, like 2019, they really had a hard, there's a pretty big elk kill because they
Yeah.
just couldn't find the food they needed.
Yeah.
Well, that's.
thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, no, we did.
we went into special session.
With that,
That's awesome.
We had,
We,
at our big meeting.
You know, we
they
had
asked
BLM, Forest Service and CDPHE and everybody here.
Good.
After we got through with the meeting, we cleared the room except for
EPA,
three people from EPA and the local
Yeah.
planning group, kind of.
Yeah.
That's good.
just hash some things out.
Like, cause like I said, wait, are you done, Scott? I'm not.
Yeah,
Keep going.
yeah.
Like I said, saying by law, the Army Corps of Engineers have to do this. Okay, show me the law. Okay,
And show me the Army Corps' letter that says you have.
show me any Army Corps personnel there. It's all EPA, it's all ER. That dance isn't gonna work with me anymore.
I was gonna say, show me the contract with ER. That's
Correct,
what it's all about.
correct, perfectly.
Yeah.
And then,
It just seems like so much overkill.
right,
We just,
Yeah.
we have very little control over what the EPA is able to do in our county anyway,
Right.
but impacting our
county road
county road.
and
right
easement,
ways
I
is-
think Dennis. I'd actually like to hear from Dennis on this. You said that last meeting, on the Zoom meeting, remember Dennis?
Well, I was concerned regarding the right of way construction and whose liability is that going to be? I mean, it's in our right of way, but it was built by them. You know, there's all sorts of questions there, and I raised them with that EPA person, and then they were going to get back to us at some point, and I'm sure that'll happen very quickly. So,
Hey, Dennis, let's say somebody rolled their car off into that ditch. Could they sue because that ditch is there? It wasn't before,
Not us.
not us, but I mean,
well, I would never.
After these meetings on YouTube.
I don't want to explain in an open meeting one way or the other, but I would say that it's definitely something we need to explore further. And yeah, it causes me concerns. Obviously, someone digs a huge hazard right in our right of way. That causes me some concern. So I think it's something that we need to follow up with, and the next time we have a meeting with EPA, I'd like to hear an answer to my question that I raised with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I've been trying to actually find out what the right of way
Thank you.
of that road is.
It's hard to look up,
It's not, it hasn't been easy to find.
I bet.
wasn't that was a state road at one time?
Well,
Right.
that's the problem. I mean, well, I
So
should say
did
that's
that-
a problem. But yeah, it was state highway. It was put there when the tailings pond was built, because the original highway was on the
They
inside.
moved it, yeah.
So they moved it, so they had to trade land, or not trade land, but Sunnyside had to donate that land or at least an easement to CDOT
Hmm,
that should define that. I did, you know, through the clerk's records and stuff to see if we could find an easement or a deed for that property between
Something.
Sunnyside and, or not Sunnyside, it was Standard Metals
All right,
and CDOT. And we're just coming up blank. I mean, I'm still.
ask
still
Larry,
looking at-
Carino, he might know.
That's a
So-
good point.
that's a good
I mean, I
segue,
know-
that's a good segue for me, if you're done.
No, I just gonna say, you know, timeline, the pond came online in 76, so the road was done probably 75.
So right in
or
that area,
76. So, you know, so we had kind of a timeline to look at that,
still hard to find, I bet.
yeah. And I put in an email to Kenny Shop to see if in any of his
Or his
You know,
dad's,
surveying
bet his dad's got some.
or, you know, something that if he's got any documentation on that. I know I can find it, it's just. I was thinking it was gonna be something I could pull up relatively easy and.
Yeah.
Him and Ernie's records might have it though, like you said.
Yeah.
Was there railroad track through that area too?
No,
No,
No.
Well, there had to have been, at some time, somewhere in the valley, there was the railroad track.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
but I think it.
So
it's over northern,
It
yeah.
followed the road of the. Over close to the hillside, the original. Well, maybe
Probably
not.
went right through by the powerhouse, almost, I bet.
Yeah.
And as far as, it probably goes right, I bet it went right through where the tailings pond is.
Yeah.
I'd have to look at the map, but I mean, the river road is the original
The
grade.
real road is.
So as you come towards the powerhouse, that's the river.
I don't,
I assume it went right through
I don't remember anything where the highway is now. I mean, I don't think there was anything, well, what was out there was the airstrip.
Oh, yeah.
okay,
Cause the airstrip actually went from the powerhouse down to Thornton Lake campground essentially.
That's where I remember the airstrip was at, something like.
So it was just a long strip of road.
well, that's a little before my time.
Yeah,
The railroad.
Yeah,
They were
not-
landing-
no, no,
They were
on
like,
the airstrip,
they
though,
were
yeah,
landing planes by the Silverton Lakes campground.
wow. So I'm gonna throw the segue into, Scott, you remember from our field trip this
Right.
morning, I did, Mr. Prino did grab me from the hardware store and showed me, remember the upper ditch
Right.
that I showed you?
Yeah.
His property is up, on pond 3 there. And, what's happened with that upper ditch that is the same liability, it's not lined. And that upper, and you can see it, that upper ditch is already there to protect that,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
They've cut off Mr. Prino from his property and, like he said, he stated he's not gonna sign an easement with, he's talked to Athena, they have open talks and then he's not gonna give an easement until they give him some kind of crossing.
Yeah, and we asked, we questioned.
We asked.
Athena.
Did you? Good,
They did
good.
ask about
Good
that.
enough.
They.
They're working it out.
Yeah.
Okay, all right,
But we said you need to talk to Larry. Because he's
Good enough.
unhappy with a couple of things, so
that's it.
that's all I got on the EPA stuff. I don't think I had any other meetings. I got ambulance tomorrow.
Just, I want to say one thing on the record, and that is that counties enjoy a great deal of immunity when it comes to maintaining roads, and you know that's a fact. We do enjoy a great amount of immunity there. However, it also wouldn't be a bad idea at some point just to shoot the EPA a letter saying, you know, we're concerned with this situation you've created, and just have the file, putting them on notice that we didn't have a choice. You know, we didn't have a choice. You created this situation, and you know we're concerned. You know, that might someday be a nice thing to have.
Good idea.
I think it'd be a good idea that we CC that to our senators as well. And our rep.
Yeah,
for the
Yeah.
wouldn't hurt. Do you guys have any meetings?
No, not too many. I think I'm gonna have a meeting with Heather Otter from Sword, and hopefully she and Becky and I'll be able to sit down on next Friday. I missed our last meeting because our meeting got rescheduled, so they were concurrent at the same time, so that was.
I had a small meeting with Kim White. We're gonna have further talk, so I guess I won't say it's a formal meeting, but gonna have it, winter's coming. I'll bring this up later, but generators.
Yeah.
Power outages, those kind of things that we slid right through the summer on, coming up again.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'd like to know that the gym is a usable facility for seniors and,
right. No,
right,
that's a great.
with working generators and,
yeah.
and the bottom line is also maybe even check on the gas station and diesel. If you don't have a generator for diesel, Paul Wilson or anybody from CDOT will tell you it's game over.
Yeah.
No diesel,
Yeah.
it's done.
Yeah.
Sorry, no snow plows, okay? I think it's game over, so just something to think about in the next few meetings.
Making
right?
sure ambulance has a working generator, the hospital has a working
Correct.
generator.
Yeah.
The gym being used as a.
Absolutely, all the above.
Safety shelter, you know. I
Yeah,
think-
grocery store,
yeah,
everything,
I
you know,
think it's a great idea.
that's all I got.
On that front, have we seen any more action on the hospital for the boiler system or heat system at all from them? Yeah. I feel like I'd like to take a tour of the hospital and just kind of see the current. I've never seen the current boiler systems. I think it'd be kind of cool.
Should have seen it before they fixed it up.
Yeah.
That's like a dungeon.
This is one of the oldest ones still operating in the state, maybe the oldest one still operating in the state.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
The way it was in the old days, I wouldn't have, I wouldn't have
have
spent the night in that room, that's a pretty spooky room.
That's what the boiler inspector said by the number that's on that, he said it's. You know, it's one of the oldest ones that still be inspected.
Wow.
I was gonna
Sure, go ahead, Dennis.
I was just going to point out that, you know, we're going to have those that subtenant clinic in there. I hope we have enough heat for them.
Yeah, I think that's the goal, is that we can adequately maintain that. And one other thing that I have, just, I know Becky's concerned about the snow shedding off of the roof too, and I got these little aluminum triangles made, basically, that were just these little things that were just stakes to hold the snow on the roof so that there was no
It doesn't come
slide.
That ice comes off pretty heavy.
I know, probably, a lot of times you see the little janky kind of plastic ones that they have them that are just kind of like these L-shaped ones, but.
Is that working in your alley?
That was at the old avalanche we had.
Oh, okay.
That snow stake thing, just to prevent that, because we'd have the narrow space between our house and, or our property and McKay's there, and that would fill up with snow. So we figured if we could hold the snow on the roof, then the south facing sun would hit it and melt it off.
Turn it into ice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
There you go.
But it was gonna do that anyway, so it just made it even worse, so we just, and we had this plan where we could take and we could put a gutter or heat tape along it, but it was gonna be necessary for both of us to do it. And that.
Well, that's a tough area between all those little buildings.
Yeah, so, but that might be a good thing, just to, you know.
No, I think that
Cause those things are plenty stout enough to hold a couple feet of snow on there, and it'd be better not to have it slide off on people. At least it might give somebody peace of mind walking underneath it, who has to walk in and out of that for work.
I know a couple guys that put coal in there that wouldn't mind,
Yeah.
it to be safe too.
Snow stops, if I'm not mistaken, because I had a case involving those. Snow stops is what they're called. And I did want to point out, though, I remember walking downtown Chicago a few times back in the 80s, and they had a building there, that real interesting building. I don't know what it is, but it's probably, 100 stories tall or something, and the top of the top floor is slanted towards the street. So I think they gave up, and they just tape it off every winter and make sure it's down there. And I don't know how many people might have died from.
Well, there's that building in Denver that's got a curve like this.
Yeah,
On a more serious note, there was a death last year in Purgatory,
Yeah,
yeah,
there was.
yeah.
so with a 5-year-old. So,
Yeah, just, yeah,
Yeah,
we love
I
it.
know that they did that little snow stop at the Grand on that shed.
yeah.
And that worked well.
I think
You could probably do the bars and stuff too, but these little triangles, I mean, I think they cost $10 a piece or less, they're such a small area to do, it wouldn't take somebody with a ladder, but, an hour to put them up, and, yeah, I bet Ken could make them with his break here in town too, and just cut them out really quick.
Yeah,
Make it.
and do it and put it on, come on with the lift,
Something
do
too,
the ladder.
yeah, oh, yeah, we've got better tools.
We got lifts, yeah.
Some of us do.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, if that's one other thing that comes up a lot, so if we could knock that out before winter, I know that might,
Good idea.
that might keep our staff out there a little happier.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
And staff we get these days are just soft, back in the old days.
I know.
They just wore a hard hat.
Yeah, these new guys kind of weaken a little bit,
Occasionally you get hit in the head.
Exactly, exactly.
I know they have a pretty good attorney over there too, so.
No, I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah,
Good enough.
but yeah, Colin probably the best person to get to give me a tour, or should I ask Lauren or somebody to?
I'm probably gonna, I'll contact David Singer and
Okay.
Lauren, because we have to make sure that anything we put on the exterior of the building doesn't make.
Yeah.
Historically.
I was just thinking more for the boiler system, I'm just curious.
I can give you a tour of that.
Okay.
I've been up close and personal with that bad boy.
Well, but if you give me the tour, then we have to notify it as a public. meeting.
Oh, it's, well, we can all do a field trip.
We can do it.
That's right, I'm upsetting the sunshine, yeah.
You wanna go over,
Okay, cool,
just catch me.
yeah, all right, sounds good.
Yeah, there you go, that would be better, right? Stay out of trouble, right, Dennis?
That's my best advice.
I'm not sure that anybody would accuse Pete and I of having clandestine meetings in the boiler room, but. Let's not go there.
It's so there. All right.
All right, anything else?
I don't think so.
All right, we'll adjourn this meeting at 9:26.
Thanks, sir.
All right, good job.
Good meetings. Thank you for you guys in the planning meeting today.
Oh, yeah.
That was awesome you did that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.